This week's episode is sponsored by Change. Change is the #1 mentoring programme that teaches you e-commerce from scratch. Change has a real community with real results. I have been working with Ryan for many years now and have attended many of his events and retreats across the world and got to meet members and the amazing community of like-minded people. Ryan works with a lot of big names in the business world, helping them build online businesses and e-commerce. Change offers personal one-on-one support, no experience needed, but like anything, this takes time and is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you put the work in, you will get the results. E-commerce and online shopping is getting bigger and bigger. This is a great opportunity for anyone that is looking for financial freedom. For more information, go follow Ryan on Instagram at RyanJB, and he will guide you through the steps to help you get started and build a successful online business. You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live. And boom, we're on. And today's guest, we've got Victoria Rickson. Victoria, how are we?
I'm very well, thank you for having me.
First and foremost, thanks for coming on the show. NHS whistleblower. I've actually got your kind of Twitter post that's been pinned. I think it will give people a good understanding who you are and what you're all about. I'm Victoria, 42 years old. Look great, by the way, for 42. A mother of 4 boys, a wife, and a wide-awake midwife. On February 9th, 2024, I walked out of the NHS not because I stopped caring, but because I could no longer be part of the system that is committing crimes against humanity, criminal harm and manslaughter against women, babies and midwives. The public must know the truth. Maternity services are dangerously unsafe. Women are lured into under the guise of safety, but the reality is deadly. A patient laboured for 10 hours alone behind the curtain with no care. She assumed she was safe. Her baby wasn't. The result, unnecessarily
neonatal resuscitation.
That's a big word for me.
It's okay.
This is a criminal neglect. Vaccine evidence is not safe or effective, but sold as such. I believe so. Labour wards have been running with as few as 2 midwives per shift. This is a clear risk to life. Midwives are doing 12.5-hour shifts without food, water or rest, often responsible for up to 20 patients at once, jeopardising lives in a system that refuses to listen. The evidence is clear, outcomes are worsening and avoidable deaths are happening. Inquiries lead to more paperwork, not better care. Managers are complicit, failing to stand up for their staff while knowingly allowing unsafe conditions that lead to harm. Vital funding cuts have halted essential progress in maternity services, leaving women at risk. Birth choices are being denied despite EU law protecting them. NHSE, RCM and NMC are unfit for practice, allowing harm while pretending to protect. The bullying culture is horrific, forcing midwives to choose between their jobs or their morals. Hospitals are dishonest, misreporting outcomes to cover up preventable deaths. The NMC has blood on its hands, responsible for the suicides of nurses who were abandoned instead of supported. Community care have been stripped back to the bone with minimum, if not zero, education and support for families and communities that leaves parents isolated, misinformed and without the help they need. This is not just failure, this is criminal. Midwives are expected to hold up a collapsing system, yet our voices are ignored. And when I spoke up, you were threatened, death threats. You were told that whistleblowers go missing overnight. You were falsely accused of responsible for the death of a baby. I have been horrifically trolled and harassed. I will not be intimidated. I will not be silenced. I am wide awake midwife and I will fight for the truth. Boom. And now you're here.
I am.
How's things with it all?
since that post kind of went viral?
Yeah, it's been up and down, as you can imagine. I think whistleblowing is very personable, but most of us experience the same emotions: grief, loss, fear, being proud, being loud, and you fight in between the I'm going to keep going back. You almost have to retreat in, gather your strength, a bit like a soldier, I can imagine. Go and eat, go and replenish yourself and go back out and fight and battle. That's no different to being a whistleblower.
Before we get into everything though, I always like to go back to the start with my guests, get more of a bit of understanding about you, Victoria, where you grew up and how it all began.
Yeah, so I was born in Portsmouth. My dad was Navy, so Dad's actually Scottish. He's in Dundee. Mum was from Portsmouth, and I pretty much grew up moving around. I think I went to about 8 different primary schools and schools in my early life, which has really served well today because change does not faze me. Moving and up and going does not faze me. I have no connection to things that are immaterial. And then I grew up in Scotland. So I grew up in the Kingdom of Fife. Went to Belbaxter Secondary School. I had a great time. Bit of bullying because I was English, you know. They thought Braveheart came out at that time and I killed all the women and children, and it was stupid. But it, again, grew me. I grew really positively. I've always been someone that has never been able to display themselves properly. I've always been outspoken, and as I get older, I'm learning how to disseminate that properly rather than it coming from a place of any trauma or, you know, undeniable anger. I'm in a place where, okay, here's the facts. Let's be a little bit more logical and disseminate this fairly. So that's pretty much my whole life has been like that.
What was your first ever job?
I worked at the Scottish Deer Centre. I wore a beautiful little kilt and worked in the shops. Yeah, it was brilliant. I went back there recently. It was such nostalgia, and my boss was still there. Oh, yeah, she was still there, and yeah, do you know, Scotland is in my heart. I can't wait to go back. My husband won't go there because he's English, but the Scottish people are the best people. And I generally, not just saying that because you are Scottish, but I've always
don't like to brag, but I believe you're right that I will agree with you there, Victoria. I'm sure I agree with you in many things, but that'll be top of the list. So what was kind of life like after that? What did you do?
Bit of a car crash. Made lots of big decisions that I wasn't grounded. I wasn't in a place of safety in myself. I was always successful in my jobs. Always did really well. Went and worked at the Bank of Scotland in St Andrews, then in Dunfermline. So I've always done really well in my workplaces, and always stepped up in the role quite early because I was in my early 20s. But I had my first son at 19, and then he, I really rebelled after him and just wasn't the best mother, didn't know what I was doing. And I think through my own life, I hadn't recognized the traumas that I'd had. And then I was behaving in line with those traumas and wasn't actually behaving very well. So I feel in my life I've done a lot of soul searching, reflecting that I haven't always made the best decisions, and I've hurt people very close to me. But I think that is part of being human. It's
all part of life. It's all part of the growth, I guess. What sort of traumas? Can you touch on them? Or
Yeah. My parents' divorce was brutal. I was, very young. I just moved from England to Scotland, and Dad just, left, and it was really tough. And I've done a lot of healing because I'm a healer now. And I go back to that, and I go back to that 13-year-old girl in my meditations and my connections, and I just let her know she's going to be all right. And she is going to be all right because she's here today and she's all right.
Why do you think that really affects people? Because I always state this on the podcast, but the majority of men in prison come there because lack of a father, no father around, divorce through the roof. The people who turn to the OnlyFans, porn, addiction, struggle because they've not got that strong family unit. Now, not everybody does it, but the stats are there to prove that you need a mother and father to raise children. Why do you think it affects us so much?
Because we're not meant to be apart from the people that we love. We're not meant to be apart. And this is why it's so important to talk about this message with maternity, because they break you down young. So you never fully are working within your true authenticity by the time you become an adult. So if they get the mother in pregnancy and they start attacking her and they don't treat her well and they feed her with medication, she's not going to bond with her baby. That baby's not going to then grow up to bond with anything in their lives. This is a planned attack, I believe, from a corporation, governmental, WEF, WHO, all feeds down. So I think the fact that fathers, when they leave, it's not the father leaving that's difficult, it's how it's dealt with, I think, afterwards. So my parents weren't good communicators. they didn't talk. We couldn't talk about it. None of us knew how to talk about it. So 3 daughters then in separate rooms, in their own trauma, in their own grief, one cutting themselves or doing whatever. Not saying my sisters did that, but, you know, one could be cutting themselves. I never did anything physical. What I turned into was I was a great sports person. So I was Fife high jump for years, queen, and hurdler, and a big cross-country runner. And I turned that trauma into energy of, but then it becomes an addiction in itself. So you're not actually transmitting the trauma out properly. It's only as a grown woman now I understand that. But at the time, you turn that into either an addiction or porn or sleeping around or causing anger to everybody else. And what do? You project everything that everybody else's fault. And actually, it's you. And that's all I've done is turn it around and take full responsibility. So I think the breaking of the family has been planned for a very, very long time, and it's working.
Yeah. But it's mad because even though the health and fitness side of it is a healthier addiction than other ones, but it can be so more damaging to the brain than just drugs or alcohol or everything. But it's always to find the fine line and the balance. But why we don't? Because we're extreme. All humans are extreme. Yeah. We do one end of the spectrum or the other. I either don't drink or I'm fucking bang on it. I either take drugs or I just go missing. I just hibernate and just stay clean, you know. So. Yeah.
That's your internal adrenaline, cortisol, all of this. It just plays that huge part. And if you just sit still in those tough moments, which I've done in the last 4 years, it's tough to sit still and do nothing. And that's what we need to be doing more of. But it's harder to do that.
So you had your first son, 19, kind of not understanding life, kind of making your mistakes to learn as a mother, to grow. I was the same when my 2 kids were born at the start. I had 2 girls pregnant at the same time 15 years ago. And it took me maybe, I would say, a good 8 years, 9 years to understand what it's like to be a father and the importance of being a father. And it's hard if you've not. I had a great dad, loving, used to keep me off of school, used to take me to the gym and just, yeah, done many great things. But when you become a dad yourself, it doesn't matter who raised you. It's trying to understand your life's mistakes, your patterns, and to break that and how to become a dad. You'll never really see a dad reading books or educating himself because we feel as if it's the mother's job, and as bad as that is nowadays, we just feel it's women just go naturally how to be a good mum, I believe. Yes, like I say, we can still make mistakes, but for a dad, we really need to search and understand what it's like to be a dad and to lead by example and not to be sitting there and drinking and full of drugs and coming home late and feeling sorry for yourself. Like, to lead by example. Your kids are a reflection of you, and would you want your kids being who I was in my 20s? Of course not. Did it make me a better person though? Of course. But I would still rather them miss those bad times and try and have more good times, you know, and learn from my mistakes. When did you start kind of understanding the role of a mother and the importance of it?
In the last 2 years.
Just 2 years ago?
Yeah. And my eldest is 24. Yeah. And he even says, Mum, you're so different. You've become a better mother the more you've had, because obviously I've got 4 boys. But now it's because I've addressed my inner demons, traumas, and I've taken responsibility for them. Nobody told me to act that way but me. It doesn't matter when you say, oh, but that person did this. It doesn't matter what they did. You did it. And that's what I've done. And that's really hard, especially when you feel hard done by and you feel victim. Well, how has it helped me being a victim? It's not helped me whatsoever to be a victim. I chose to be a midwife. This is not the blame of the hospital. I chose my births. I chose to be a midwife. I chose to leave. I take full responsibility for everything. Once you start changing that mindset, you actually change your regulation system within your body, and you calm and you stop and you make better decisions. And you don't react, and you have more love, and you are more lighter. And then everything starts coming to you in more of an abundance because you're now letting off energy that you're in control of yourself, and you're feeling happier in yourself, and you've surrendered to whatever will come. James, if I'm supposed to be killed because I'm a whistleblower, it will happen. You can't stop those things. I'm not scared of them. I'm not afraid because I've surrendered. And there's not many people can do that, but that's where we've got to get to. And that's what I'm now teaching my children. So the beauty of it now is I'm 42. I've got 3 fathers, 4 boys, and we all hang out. We all speak. We've all been together at dinners and parties because I will not have our community broken just because we didn't deal with our traumas and stay together. So now we're together.
What about your first birth? How was that?
19, on your back, ventouse, epidural at Nine Wells in Dundee. Don't remember much about it. But remember, the caring community was there. I had a group of mums. I remember them. I remember being in the hall and learning about breastfeeding, and you would wash a baby doll and you talked about things. That's non-existent now. You have to pay for that now. You know, how are first-time mums supposed to know where to go? They're going to one system, which is the NHS, and we know what the NHS is all about. If you're awake, you'll understand it. So we're removing and robbing all these women by saying, come to us, we'll help you, and then just drop them. So if it's your first baby and you don't know any different, you will know that that's normal. But for me, having 4 children across 18 years in 2 countries and 1 at home, I know what's right in maternity and what's wrong, and it is fundamentally wrong.
Did all your births change as you started to kind of work on yourself and become more spiritual and in tune? Because back in the day, it was a free-for-all. Now I'm all for like doulas, and breastfeeding is so important. People just do their own research from formula to breastfeeding. Like, it's totally night and day. Like, feed your kid natural stuff. And again, with the umbilical cord, which I've touched on, which is so important. We cut the umbilical cord straight away, which is so wrong. It's full of nutrients in your white blood cells, and just let it fall off naturally. And then you've got the placenta. A lot of people can make it into capsules and take as well. But it's so important for people to do their own research. But when you're going to hospitals, a lot of nurses aren't even researched on it anyway, so they're going by the book, and it's not that they're bad, they're only reporting for the information that they had. And sometimes when people want to give a home birth, they're thinking, why, and do you want to take these vaccines, and do you want to take this? And it's K vitamin, doesn't even exist, and it also has link to leukemia. And I'm not here to scare people, but just do your own research and then make your own decision. We're just going from results of what the information we have on one page, but there's many different pages on there, how to give natural birth and do things right. And a lot of kids are coming out drugged up and crying and screaming. Kids should be coming out blissful. They're in peace for 9 months, and then they come into this world and it's all the artificial lights, giving pregnancy on your back, cutting the umbilical cord, coming out drugged up. Like, it's dangerous. But again, it's just lack of knowledge. So for people, just do your own research into things. And a lot of people might not do home births or doulas, but it's in your home environment. You just dim the lights, and in hospitals, it's very low vibrational, you know, and other people putting their hands on your baby first.
It's very oppressive. I've walked it. Straight away, I couldn't believe the change in me. Just the darkness. I shrunk. I would shrink. I've always been a very confident woman. Always. My mum always said, you were born confident. Not arrogant. I have been arrogant and full of ego, yes, but not now. Now I realise my confidence is my skill, it's my art, and how I can get my information out there to the masses. That's what my role was. But when you actually go into that job and they teach you by a book that's restricted from here to here, and we know who teaches the NHS, we know where the funding comes from and who's above doing it. So if you're reading these books, and none of it ever really made sense because I had a home birth before I became a midwife. No one touched me. I was in control. I was at my own home. They were cranking up the heating because it was August. No, leave me alone. I'm going to burn up and get a temperature. Turn it down. So I was in my own home. I was able to say, don't touch me, and I'll do what I want. And guess what? I knew I was fully dilated. No one had to tell me that. Nikita Stark talks about this. A woman's intuition in birth is never wrong. But we pull you in under that guise of safety on my Twitter. We pull you in under the guise of safety, and you hand over your control. You hand over your intuition, and it's gone. Because you then don't know what you're doing. You don't know what's happening because everybody around you is making decisions for you. But when I had my 3rd son at home, because I had such a beautiful second birth in hospital, I thought, why am I not having my baby at home? So in 2011, I had my son James, great name, at home. He was born at home, and it was so magical. I had an out-of-body astral projection. I saw myself giving birth. That's what they don't want. They don't want women in that control. But the midwife didn't touch me as much. I knew I was fully dilated. She didn't have to stick her fingers in my vagina. She didn't have to touch me. I knew. And then what did I do? I got ready and prepared in my mammal sense of where I was going to birth and how I was going to do it. And no one was telling me what to do. And if I didn't have that experience, James, I probably wouldn't be able to be here today talking about the difference of birth. I've had 4 different births because the last birth was horrific and I was a midwife. It traumatized me. but I take responsibility for the birth I chose. But what it's made me realise is I was robbed of my choices because I hadn't dealt with my trauma.
So what was the last one? Why was that so bad?
Well, you know, we talk about sickness in your body when you haven't dealt with your trauma. So I developed type 1 diabetes at the age of 37 in my 4th pregnancy. I was so unwell, and I was a midwife, and I was admitted for 9 days on one stint and 3 on the other. I was so unwell. And the doctors, all they said the whole way through my pregnancy is, you're going to have a stillbirth. You're at risk of stillbirth. You're at risk of stillbirth. Now, I've never had those words said to me before. When you hear them, they are so frightening. And they only say them to cover their own back. Because if they haven't said it and it's not documented, they could be at risk of litigation, right? So I've walked out of a hospital now thinking, my baby's going to die, so I might as well not even link to it. So I didn't even connect with my last son. I stripped myself of being pregnant. It was horrific. My husband will tell you I was unrecognizable. And I worked with these people. And they were constantly telling me, you're at risk of stillbirth. You need to get your blood sugars down. So not only was I pregnant, I was now a midwife with all the knowledge and all the trauma that I'd seen of all the harm. I'm now seeing that I have to take insulin and titrate that. Type 1 diabetes, we know, is, people call it the bad diabetes. It's so hard to manage diabetes because you're practically an organ outside injecting as if you're an organ. So I was dealing with all of that. And then they frightened me so much that they told me I had to be induced at 37 weeks, which is very early. I've always spontaneously gone into labour myself at 40 weeks. Every time. I've never had to be induced because my body knew what it was doing. And my baby knew when it wanted to be born because it felt safe. Whereas in this pregnancy, they said I had to get to 37 weeks. So when I got to 36 weeks, I think it was, yes, my consultant, Imogen, said, no, your diabetes isn't as bad as we thought. You can wait another 2 weeks. And obviously I'm thinking, I've managed to keep my baby alive all this time. I can't wait 2 more weeks because he'll die. And I went into self-sabotage, like my baby's going to die. My baby's not safe in there. We're telling women that their womb is not safe for their baby. What the hell? That's ridiculous. Of course it's the safest place they should be. Out here is worse for them. Not in all cases, of course. And what I found astonishing was I then got, so normally you would be induced for type 1 diabetes, or induction for type 2 diabetes, or induction for previous small baby, or GBS, group B strep, right? So they'll put a reason why you're being induced because it goes on the system as statistics. I was no longer being induced for type 1 diabetes. They induced me for mental health. So I went down as a mental health statistic. Can you imagine what that does to someone's psyche and how they then attach themselves in their pregnancy? And because I walked this, I now realise how many 600,000 women potentially feel in their pregnancy in the UK.
Every year?
Every day. Every year. And you're thinking, my goodness, what is happening? So not only did I take control of my own induction, I wanted to be induced early. Now, when I had my son, I had 9 vaginal examinations in 24 hours. I never thought about this at the time. It was only after in my sexual relationship that things weren't right in my own body. And I was like, there was this trauma attached to my vagina, my privates. Can you imagine strangers and people that you know, because some of the midwives you don't know, coming into your room and popping their fingers in your vagina, right deep as far as your back passage? That happened 9 times in 24 hours. Now, some of those are warranted because I was in labour by then, but so many in between, I was screaming, James, screaming. My husband was burst into tears thinking I was dying. And I'd had a home birth where no one touched me. Can you see the difference? Yeah. It was traumatizing.
See the women doing this job though, they're only going by the hymn sheet. So like I say, it's not to shoot down workers and shoot down other people, teachers, or they're only going, doctors, they're only given this sheet to say, listen, promote this, give this drug, this is what works. They're actually believing, and it's the same people who got the vaccine. Yeah. They're not bad. It's just lack of knowledge. It's just lack of understanding, of questioning it. They just think they're doing the right thing. Yeah. So not everybody, we're in a society where everybody's believe me. You can't. You're only given the knowledge what you want, and human beings kind of trust other people, even though we shouldn't, which is sad reality. In a great world, we all should trust and love, but it's not the way the world is just now. So it's just to question these things. And is there a lot of male workers?
Oh, we only had one. We only had one. And the women loved him. I don't want a male midwife. I want to be with women in the women's space.
You understand that?
Yes, you know, and women do say, Victoria, have you had children? Yeah, I have 4. And they would go, God, you look so young. One woman actually said to me, I don't want you, you're too young. And I was like, I've had 4 babies. She was like, oh, you could stay. Women want you to relate to them.
Why would she not want you if you're too young? Just thinking.
I don't know. I didn't ask. But I can imagine it's because for some women, they have anxiety about being in hospital. People don't like walking into hospitals. It creates anxiety because they feel the energetic oppression.
But the babies will feel that cortisol, no? Does that not then go into their psyche?
Yep.
That stress, that anxiety, and you're programming your kid from whatever you're feeling.
Yeah. And what are we made of? Water. We now know from Vader Austin and Emoto's work that water holds memory. So if you as a woman are thinking and feeling something, water crosses the placenta into your baby. So your baby is feeling your resonance. And what were they doing now? So in 1947, when the NHS was born, hardly anybody delivered in hospital. They delivered at home. And the only reason why they moved it into hospital was if you didn't have good sanitation, you were at risk of infection, so you need to come to the hospital. That's the only reason why they moved it. So now, fast forward, nearly 100 years later, pretty much every woman is delivering in hospital. We have the lowest home birth rates and the lowest breastfeeding rates and the worst outcomes. We've got 1 in 3 with trauma. We've got £1.1 billion of litigation, which takes up 51% of the NHS claims is maternity. What, and none of them are doing anything about it? Do you think any MPs contacted me?
No.
Do you think Wes Streeting's contacted me?
No.
Do you think James Titcombe, who is patient safety lead for the country's really contacted me?
No.
Right. Do you think Theo Clark, who just ran the recent birth trauma inquiry, included me?
No, but is this because why would they not want to fix the problem? What is the main objective? Is it to get the vaccine into the kids? Is it to...
Money. Control money. Control the masses. Keep women's vibration low, you know that. What then happens if the woman's energetic field is low? When she's at home with that new baby, she's not going to connect, she's not going to breastfeed. The baby's going to suffer, the relationship's going to suffer, the in-laws suffer, the siblings suffer, and it ripples and ripples.
Yeah,
Birth costs money.
Yeah, but I've been saying it for many years now. Women's energy controls the world. It controls your partner's energy, controls the household. It controls everything, the feeling, the mood, everything. How that woman energy is the way the household will be, and that's facts. This is proven, you know, and it's not that the man tries to be happy, but we go with the woman's energy. Like I say, the women are the true source of the world. I always say that. Men build it. We need each other. We're in a society where it's all fight, fight, fight. We don't need each other. We hate each other. We can be independent. Women are the most single they've ever been, and less mothers than they've ever been. What do you want to be, 40, a boss lady? And yeah, do you know what? I'm staying in the penthouse. I've got my watch, my big car, but you're going to die alone. That's not the way we should be. And be who you want to be. But all this feminism bullshit has fucked us up. Men can't speak out anymore. Men are becoming weaker. That's why roles have reversed as well. It's not women are bad and want to be boss ladies. There's no men to provide and protect. We're becoming softer. We're fucking dancing on TikTok. We're not being as honest as we can be. We're not being as sharp as we can be. And women then need to take that role of being masculine while men are becoming feminine. They do say that the water supply has been tampered with estrogen. But either way, we need to make a stand. We need to go back to our natural roles. And like I say, be who you want to be. If you want to be that boss lady, by all means be it. If you want to be fruity and feminine for a man, by all means be it. But for me, it's the family household. I want more kids. I'd love another 3-4 kids. I just feel as I'm in a better space. It just needs to be with the right person. I've got 3 kids to 3 women. And believe me, it's not easy. But that's the choices I made then. For me, I want more kids. I will have more kids. I just think it's the best thing. Everything I've tried to achieve in life, it's not fulfilling. You know, it was fulfilling when I started getting maybe the car and the house and the watch, and I think this is amazing. That disappears after 1 week. The fulfilling things that last a lifetime is being a father, I believe, and being the best role model you can.
Yep.
If kids need structure, they need discipline. And I'm not saying fucking beating your kids and doing all that, but they need discipline. They need to be told no. They need to be told, yeah, this is right. They need to fall down and pick themselves back up, because that's what life is all about. No kids. The streets are empty. They're empty.
My kids, 4 of them, never, ever disrespect me.
Yeah.
Never. They're so respectful, and they're respectful to their partners. My daughter-in-law messaged me recently and said, thank you for not only giving me my partner, but giving me my home. I was like, bah! Sobbing. But I have got that from my parents, because my parents did have that. And if they'd only just dealt with all of their other traumas, I think they probably could have gone on and we could have been a very solid unit, but it wasn't meant to be, and I'm okay with that. But you are right. The feminine energy in the house, she's the healer. He's the provider. He's the man that wants to bring it. But if you're bringing it from a place of ego, it's never going to work. So, you know, people want to chase money and they want to... I was in ego when I went to be a midwife. The profession called my ego because I'm like, yes, I'm a midwife. I'm this, I'm that. People won't be afraid. People are too afraid to admit that. I'm not, because I'm authentic and I'll just say how it was. When I look back, that's exactly what it felt like. Ego, ego, ego. But now I'm like, heart space. Hang on a minute. What's going on here? No one's to blame. My colleagues aren't to blame. But I think it's really important when we start healing, you start bringing out the truth about what's coming on, what's been going on, and what's been hidden. Because without the truth, we cannot heal. And if the truth keeps being hidden and hidden behind the corporations and people aren't able to speak out about it because they're threatened, nothing will heal. And it's the birth that is the start of any life, but it's the vessel that grows the birth that also needs the nurture. So if women don't want to work and they want to raise a family, they shouldn't be penalised for that. It's the most rich job in the world. It's the most profound job in the world. You are raising our future generations. So I'm a big believer that if women don't want to work, they shouldn't have to work, but they shouldn't be penalised for it. Yeah. Like you're a bum at home with kids. Wow. You know, when you're at home and from the mental scope it takes to deal with a 2-year-old that's drawing over all over your walls and all over your house and taking the nappy off and put poo everywhere. You know, when you look back, it's funny because one day you'll wish the poo was back on your walls because they grow so quick. And if we don't sit still and see our children grow and evolve, we miss every opportunity to intersect as parents to say, what do you need? What help do you need? So my ex-husband's also a healer in the healing journey. So he's becoming a healer. So my children and the people around me have the best supporting healers around them who can start helping them bring up and dredge up some of the things that they need to address, including our children. But they go out into the world and they're not going to meet people on the same level, which is going to be really, really difficult.
Yeah, but women, I always say this as well, but they become the best versions of themselves when they become a mother.
Yeah.
That's the best job in the world, but we're living in a society where you need to, and listen, a lot of women out there need to work 2 or 3 jobs to keep alive and keep providing, which is amazing. But to be the best version of you, is, I believe, is becoming a mother and really understanding you, because you're not as selfish anymore. You've got someone else to think about. But we're living in a society where you need to go and work, bills are too high, so the mums and dads need to work. The kids are in nurseries and schools with teachers and people you don't really know, and everybody's got some fucking darkness in them as well, and you just don't understand how dark these people can be. I've interviewed enough people now, it's made me more aware of I need to be more protective, and I'm a very protective dad, and that's the sad reality, because why should I have my kids around other people that I don't know? They could be anybody. Fucking anybody, male and female. This isn't just men who work in nurseries and schools who are predators. Also, the women can be, and it's the perfect job for people to do that. If your kids are in nurseries and school, and people need to put their kids in nurseries and schools because they need to work and provide, but
trapped in the system.
Yeah, it's just a system of control, and we're all in it. I'm still in the system. You're still in the system. We're still caught up in that, but we're just more aware of it. We can ask the questions. So what happened then, becoming a midwife, joining the NHS? How did it all start?
I had my home birth and I went, wow, whatever that is, I want to feel that every single day of my life. Because when you just talked about as a woman you evolve when you have a baby, it is literally like you walk through a portal door and you've left behind an old remnants of you. I can't explain it because it's not tangible. I can't touch it. I can't see it. It happened. I expanded in my consciousness when I gave birth to my son. He was my catalyst to this journey. And I watched myself. It was like an astral project. I've already said that. And when I had him, it was incredible. He was my connection to motherhood. He was my connection to what birth really meant. So I became a midwife. And the midwife that was there was a good friend, Kaylee. And I really looked up to her because she was only new. She was amazing. She was incredible. And I thought, I want to give women this every single day. How many women do you think I had that with? None. Never saw it. Never happened. And I became afraid of normal birth. If you gave me a woman in the pool with candles, it caused me anxiety because I was so ingrained in the trauma of the systematic task algorithm of paperwork. If I didn't have that in front of me, there's no way I can deal with that. But I can deal with someone that's got a heart problem with twins, and I liked the adrenaline rush because I was addicted to the trauma. That's how I'm addicted to exercise. It was the same thing in a different way. And I didn't put my finger on it. It took me a little while, but once I clicked, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? What have I done? Oh my God, how many injections have I given by those babies? How many women have I given IVs to that didn't need it? How many women have I violated with my fingers? Oh my God. And it flooded in, James, and I sat on my sofa for 7 weeks and I went into the darkest place and I had the biggest awakening of my life. And I couldn't put it all into context. I couldn't box it up. So it was all flooding in. It was like a spiritual awakening. Like everything flooded in and I was like, the vaccines, oh my God. And it all just, it was like someone went, oh, she's ready, dump in her brain. And I no longer could conform. I had 380 days off sick between then and leaving because I just couldn't stay. I kept staying in bouts and then I was like, my body's sick. I was really unwell internally, physically. So like when I started to think about midwifery and what it really meant, what is midwifery? The role of a midwife is to hold space for a woman in her pregnancy, in her postnatal, in her birth, and potentially on to menopause in the community, as your mum would probably remember your midwife because it would have been her local midwife in the area. I remember mine before the system changed, which was in 2018, it really changed. So when you actually start thinking about what midwifery is, it's not what they've created. That's a monster. It's a system chugging over trauma and chugging over an invoice. Because if you have an induction of labour, you've got a pound sign above your head. Do you know how many women a day are induced in the NHS?
No.
495. That means 495 women have to open their legs and have something put inside their vagina to start their labour because they've been told they're high risk, because they've been told this. And women believe it because they'll do anything for their baby. Nobody ever gets pregnant and says, I want a dead baby. Nobody ever says, I want a disabled child. Do they? They want a healthy baby. So women will sacrifice themselves. They give their arm. So they listen to the system. And I'm not saying that's always wrong because it's not, because it does save lives. But when you've got it on a disproportionate level, that you're inducing 495 women a day and up to 8 babies a week die unnecessarily. That's a lot of death. That's a lot of trauma that palpates for centuries through people. You always hear of granny lost a baby. Someone's lost a baby. And it was very rare, but you're hearing it day in and day out in the media. So midwifery for me was great to start with because it was my ego. But the more I became connected to my heart and my true authenticity as a woman, it was done. I was out. And it's sad because my colleagues can't see what I see and they see me as a problem, which is fine. I'm happy with that. But that's their decision to feel I'm the problem when I'm actually just bringing hard evidence that you can touch and say, well, this is actually happening to all of you. So for me, midwifery now, it needs an absolute reform and it's not a medical condition. You've got consultants out there, doctors who are on multiple money, saying things like normalised birth should be abolished. Normalised birth. If you remove normalised birth, you will have the sickest society forever.
We already have that.
And they're promoting this amongst themselves and they have a voice because they're doctors and people trust doctors. So I think for me, it's this campaign to obliterate birth. There is a place for all of it in relative sense, not to go from all home births to all hospital births. Because what's happened is, James, there will always be a baby loss. That is statistic. You will never not have a baby loss in birth. That will always happen. But what we've done is we've put those normal people who would have had a loss in with all the women that have got traumaed births. And we now can't pick out the ones that would have lost their babies because they're all mixed in. So what you've got now is a wave of Facebook groups and a wave of campaigning that midwives are killing their children. And midwives are the killers and midwives have done this. I get it. I didn't get it before. I get it now.
So what's the steps for a midwife? What are you told to do?
follow the policy.
What is the policy?
Oh, there's loads of them. They're all fed from the director up. When it gets to you, you look at it and you think, that's not going to work. That doesn't really work in real life. But
is
you
it
have
to
to do
find the fear and give the fear to the mother who's giving birth, so there's full control of what they should do and what the system wants them to do?
Yeah.
Is that how it's working? Is that how it operates for the short form of it?
Yeah. So if you came in with your partner and you had a BMI of over 30, you were a previous smoker, your mum might have had a bit of blood pressure problems because she wasn't well for a period of her life, you would go on a fast track high risk pathway, which means you're having more scans, you've got drugs, you've got medication, you're going to be induced. It's already laid out from the minute you've walked in the door. Hang on, let her go away and think about this. But then the woman trusts the midwife, and so they should in some areas, but not all. And I've realised that now. So I was even telling people, you've got to have extra scans. I wish I'd said, no, you don't. But if I did, what would happen? I wasn't working within the line of the policy, which then meant I was going to be pulled over hot coals because I wasn't staying within the lines of the policy.
And if anything happened, you would have got your ass felt.
They would have absolutely obliterated me.
Yeah.
And I think what's really important is, I have to highlight this, policy does not override law. So most midwives and most managers do not understand the law. They are governed in the box of the policy under the hospital. And then the HR deal with the next bit. But you've got to trust your HR manager that she knows what she's talking about, because if you disseminate that information out on the bottom and it's not the right information, that's what's causing the trouble. Because these HR people are not health practitioners. They are corporations. They're corporate. How can a corporate fit a health place? The two don't go together. The people don't see this, and the midwives don't see this, whereas I've seen it.
What's people's rights? What's people's rights to say no? Because people are just pressured. I remember when my son, when I was going to the hospitals with the mother, we were doing a home birth anyway, but they still had to do like protocol, like it's a 20-week scan, because I was very against the scans as well, because I started doing research and like the radiation for the scans, and you want to see your baby, you want to see they're fit and healthy. So I kind of understood that. There's like the 20-week one, and they just check everything, but it was like they were trying to give her tablets. I don't know if it was vitamin C or whatever it was, because of certain bloods. And it was then, you need to maybe get this vaccine. And I'm thinking, listen, that's not happening. But the way it was was questioning everything. Are you okay? It was like pressure. And like I say, it's not for the midwives. I just think they're following protocol.
Yeah.
But it's for them to understand that not everybody's believing in the system. Not everybody believes that the shit yous are given. It just doesn't make sense. And they were questioning why you wanted a home birth and why you wanted a doula, and then they were telling you things that can go wrong. Nothing positive. That's a great idea, or this. It was, why are you doing that? You'd be more safe here. And it makes you, I can see why a lot of other people break. Same as with the vaccine. I did question it. And you think, well, everybody is getting it. Maybe I am doing something wrong. And I thought, nah, fuck that. And then a few years later, you realise you've done the right thing. But the pressure from these people as well. And not everyone, there was a couple of good ones as well, who were very supportive and giving you the little booklets with all the information. But everything was negative. Everything was question what you're doing. I felt like saying, why the fuck do I need to answer your questions? It was like a police interview.
Yeah. And what do you do? What happens if you don't follow their protocol? You refer to social services. They use that card on you, and we know their corruption, and we know their connection to the police, and we know their connection to the council. So they're all connected. There's no impartiality in any of this.
So why can they report you to social services?
Because if they think that you've not followed and your baby's at risk, how is a mother and father saying no to a vaccine, a baby at risk, or any of these things? I've seen it happen. I've recently just been contacted by a father up north who researched maternity services and was horrified by what the statistics in the newspaper were saying. And he was so upset that his partner had to be induced that he went to the midwives and he swore, and they referred him to social services, and he's been suspended from his job. There's your masculine problem. He wants to be masculine. He wants to provide for his partner and be her voice. And what happened? Women shut him down. I was savage. I helped write him an email. It was strong. I said, do not sign anything. Do not do this. Do not do that. Because people don't realise the minute you put your signature on something, you're conforming to their corporation.
When should people be induced? There must be a risk after the 40 weeks, or 42, 43 weeks. I know people who's give birth naturally at 43 weeks. So But when is the point where you go, okay, maybe there is, and why do they always say? Because a lot of females now are going for that option because they want to protect downstairs, they want an easier option. But is it an easier option, and why is it getting promoted so much? And how long has this been around for?
So cesarean sections in 2001, when my son was born, was about 7%, the lowest in the country in some places, and up to 12%. We're now at literally nearly 50% in the country. To have a C-section costs up to about £8,000. So think about that. So you're going to have a bed space at £305 a night, which is going to be about 2 nights potentially. You've got the baby that then you're making money from. You've then got all the drugs. You've then got the surgery. You've then got the wages. And you've got a whole theatre of staff. So Donna Ockington, who is an ex-midwife, she did an investigation into Nottingham Hospital, which is now under criminal manslaughter, corporation manslaughter, which we'll touch on later, and Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital. And it was from her recommendations that women weren't heard and wanted a caesarean section, and if they had have had it, their baby might have lived. I agree with that. I agree that there are some people that say that they knew instinctively they needed a section and then their baby has died. So in that instance, yes. But she agreed that anybody could opt for a section, which has seen the rates rocket. We're seeing in some hospitals in Brazil a 90% caesarean section rate. So we've got the population walking around with a scar on their uterus. Some young girls at 21 years old with a scar on their uterus for the rest of their life. So my concern here is that the majority of people will labour naturally and will have a normal birth. But the problem you've got is that people are now scared of the NHS and are making fear-based decisions about their care, and not in a heart space where they think, right, you with the vaccine, you instinctively knew, yeah? Whereas some women will go, I'm so frightened of the NHS and I'm so frightened of midwifery, I'm going to withdraw all care and not do anything. And then their baby does die because they're running from the fear and they haven't made the right decision for them because they haven't connected in. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Whereas what you're seeing is women are now arguing a little bit. And I think what's really important is anybody that goes into midwifery should say, thank you for seeing me. We should be changing their system. They're there to serve us, not the other way around. Midwives and the doctors are there to serve the public, not the other way around. And people need to get that in their head. But what happens is, as you've experienced, you go in and you feel that they own you. And you've handed your whole control over. And that's what needs to shift. Women should absolutely be using the only system they've got, because it's dangerous if you don't, because we've seen some terrible outcomes at home. But I know someone that's laboured at 43 and 3 and had a £10 baby at home beautifully because she trusted herself. She didn't go, I'm not doing it because I don't like the hospital. She went, no, I know that me and my baby have made this decision and it's right. And it was right. But if people aren't making that decision from a place of love and they're doing it out of fear, then that's when things are going to go wrong. So we've got to there's a huge systemic embedding of all of this indoctrination that we need to unpick. And that's what's going to be very, very difficult. But Donna Ockington made the system worse. Now, so many midwives and so many women out there are going to be like, I can't believe she's just said that. I don't know Donna Ockington, but she's never contacted me. She's been tagged in so many of my posts. You've got a midwife out here talking about the system. There's very few of us actually naming and talking about it as deeply as I am, especially calling out the vaccines. And I'm calling out vitamin K as well. Now, I didn't then. I didn't know vitamin K was bad. I've done my research and I'm like, holy hell, the high levels of mercury in that. The links to leukemia, as you say, are huge. And we're giving that to every single baby within a minute of being born. So for me, I think for the people that are really have the volume of numbers and the funding, would not speak to a midwife that's proved everything with documents, I find that really alarming. So is she part of the problem? Is she part of the system? Is she part of the agenda? You've got to question it now. I'm not saying she is, but she's the one that has agreed that C-sections should be agreed across the board if women want them. So that's why we're seeing a huge increase. James, when I left, we used to have a morning list for C-sections, and you would have 3 women, sometimes 2, and then the list would finish for the day. By the time I left, there was a morning and an afternoon list for C-sections. The hospital was not built for bed spaces that long a time, so you were then getting bed blocked, which then meant women were labouring for longer on their own in triage because there was no beds and no midwives. But I believe this is a perfectly planned assassination of the NHS. It's done purposely. So it's working perfectly.
Yeah, it's a system. You've got to ask the question, how much is she getting paid? That's the bottom line. It's all money.
Look on Company's House.
So see, when people are getting C-sections, are they getting pressured? We don't have enough beds. You might not be in here.
Yeah.
It's too much. You might not even get a bed, so it's quicker to do that. Are they getting pressured to go down the C-section route?
I wouldn't say that, because I would say that doctors that I know and that I work with would try and talk women out of that. Well, they do opt for vaginal birth.
How is it then when you know now about the K vitamin booster and vaccines, and you're so oblivious to then thinking that you've given kids that, you've then got blood in your hands? No disrespect, but that's the way you're programmed to think you're doing the right thing. I'm a good person, same as all the doctors. When you get in for depression, mental health, they don't really ask the questions. How's your diet? Are you exercising? What are you struggling with? Trauma? Are you getting out in nature? What sort of water are you drinking? Like it's important. What's your job like? Like, they're not asking the questions of importance of daily life routine. They're just saying, do you know what? There's a box of tablets, which will tell you on the box that you can still be suicidal. If not, it'll make you worse. There's no getting to the root cause. We're numbing the pain. Like I say, a lot of doctors have just went to university for 7 years and they're following the book, and they're getting brainwashed to believe what they're getting taught. So it's difficult. But then when you start opening your eyes and start realising, shit, all that stuff I've given these women, all this stuff I've given these newborn babies, it must be difficult for then what you've been sold to do, and you think you're doing the right thing. Sometimes I question people, and I maybe envious of people who are oblivious, who are just going through their normal life, and I think, lucky bastards, you know.
Like, how do they get to live like that and keep the wage and
floating through?
But would you go back?
Nah,
absolutely not.
Because the rabbit hole, it's never ending. It's infinity, you know, and it's just to question everything that they're doing, even all the stuff that we're getting shops and sugars and alcohol and cigarettes and everything, just to dumb down the freedom of the mind. And it's so full of static, it's so full of noise, including myself. I still eat terribly, even though I know what's in my foods, even though I know what's in my waters. But where can we go? You know, it'd be great in a perfect world to stay in a field and grow your own crops and have your own water and your own land and everything free and everybody smiling and skipping every day. I just don't see it being that way, because it's too much hustle and bustle. I prefer to be in the game, trying to educate and still educate myself, because I still get it wrong. But how is it when you start questioning what you've done and who you've done it for? You know, when you think about all these innocent women and these innocent children who are innocent, basically, and they're just there because they believe in the system, they believe in an NHS, you believe in a doctor. But I think it's when a doctor tells you you've got cancer, your central nervous system drops 70% instantly, just by the words alone. Again, you mentioned Dr. Emoto, who used to video his crystals and take photos, and how you are what you speak. So words alone are powerful, but people gravitate towards the NHS, they gravitate towards your doctor. We've got trust in these people, but these people have got lack of knowledge because they're only following the textbooks that they've read. They don't really research where the drugs come from, who's behind the drugs.
No.
They're just getting their pay slap and thinking, do you know what, great, but how is it for your mindset when you start questioning the things that you've done?
I automatically went back to my drug calculation and drug module at uni, and we only had to pick one drug to thoroughly research ourselves. Like one. I give an array of drugs. So I actually wrote to the NMC after I left, and they're my governing body, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and I said, just so you know, I've inadvertently breached my code of practice every day, because actually I didn't know all these drugs inside out. They weren't even interested. But if I'd done that when I was on the register, it would have struck me off. But they know that that's actually practice. So what midwives don't realise is, do they really know what they're giving? They're trusting the research that comes from the top. So when I thought about that, I thought, oh my God, I don't know all these drugs, and I gave them all. Oh my God, that is against the law. That is against someone's human rights to a right to health and a right to a private life. What am I doing? We know the law of the land is to do no harm to one another. Be honest, be loving, have integrity, have authenticity. I stripped myself of all of that when I became a midwife. I became part of the system, part of the fundamental problems. And I think when I started realising how many vitamin Ks I'd given to baby, it broke me. I was devastated. And then when the COVID came in, I had 2 vaccines because I trusted the system. But not only that, the Royal College of Midwives, our union, were pushing that if we didn't have it, we would be sacked. So many midwives had it and didn't want it. And who knows what that's going to do to their future and their health. I already know that there's midwives with cancer that have left my profession in my workplace that I worked in. So I think for me, finding out the COVID baby deaths were what I didn't quite figure it out straight away. It took me a little while, but what I was seeing was a trend, because when you've got quite a critical, analytic mind, you start picking up trends. If you're in triage and someone's coming in with sickness and diarrhea and they live in Lera, and then someone else comes in Lera with sickness and diarrhea, you're going to start thinking, is the water contaminated? Or they live in the same street. Have they got a water contamination? That's how my brain works. So I don't just think, oh, they've got sickness and diarrhea. I'm quite a helicopter view. So when the COVID jabs came in, and I then started seeing an increase in the baby deaths, because I would only usually see maybe 1 baby death a month. That's the truth. Like, you would see it and you'd see room 9 be filled with a name, and it's always so heartbreaking. But then that room was filled all the time, and I was like, what is happening? So I used to say to my boss, what's going on? And no one really understood. But it wasn't until one day we were sat at the desk. You're going to love this. How stupid. I'm sat at the desk in my chair. There's a chair in between that's been removed and has a big cross on it. We're not allowed to sit next to each other. And then there's a chair at the end, right? We're all chatting with our masks on. I obviously used to take it out from my nose because my glasses would steam. So then I couldn't wear my glasses in all the screens because my mask would steam them up. So they were like, your mask is better than your eyesight. That's how much they cared. But what was fascinating was the alarm would go off, the emergency bell, in a room. And then you'd all run into this tiny doorway together in a room, and there would be no social distancing. And then you'd go back out and queue for the printer. My brain, it never made sense in my brain. None of it. I was like, if this is an airborne virus, this is crazy. Deadly virus. This is crazy. So then it all started piecing together. And then just before I left, I spoke to a whistleblowing doctor. And when we pieced together what I was seeing and what he knew, I was like, oh my fucking God. Oh my God. I remember being sat on my stairs. And again, I had that second flood. So not only did I have a first flood, I had a second flood, and it was, you're ready. You're receiving the information now. And it all flooded in. It was really horrific. So I'd already written my notice and I was ready to go. I hadn't talked about it with anybody. Because when I make a decision and it's my authentic decision, I will do it, and I don't have anybody's say on that. I will make that decision. So I'd written my notice. But I had also, we'll go through that after, but I'd written lots and lots of safety concerns before then. So this wasn't just a multiple bang, I'm gone in a strop. It was warranted. And on my last shift, I was sent a lady and a baby. And they were sent to me because we're very good friends now. And they were sent to me for a very, very, very good reason. And they were the reason that I had to go.
What was that doctor saying? The doctor whistleblower?
That the vaccines were bioweapons. That was Dr. Cartland, who's just recently been struck off. And, you know, he's been a very good friend to me this year.
Well, we all know now the rise in miscarriages, the rise in turbo cancers, the rise in heart attacks. Like, something's not right. And it's sad.
I mean, I never gave a flu or a whooping cough or a COVID vaccine, and that's the only blessing I can give myself. Yes, I vaccinated babies with vitamin K, but I never vaccinated anybody else. And I've never pushed it because I was on labour ward, so you didn't really talk about those things because it was a fleeting ward. You could go in and out. It wasn't a place for such education all the time. But I think when you start looking into the evidence, we are now sitting, James, on the worst fertility rates. 1.44 per woman has lost a child, which means in 100 years we will not have civilizations in the UK. And in Canada it's 1.2, and you need 2.1 to repopulate your population. Mm-hmm. It's diminishing, and it will disappear. Because I've just had a miscarriage recently, as you know. My baby, it's numb still. My baby was 8 weeks old. So I spoke to Dr. Tess Laurie. I've spoken to a pathologist who's very good friends with Kate Shamarani. And she's told me that the actual COVID rates for miscarriage is around about the 8-9 weeks, which is where I'm at. We can't prove that, but I've also had a lot of stress with fighting the council tax because now I am in my sovereignty, and none of them are going to get away with it with me now. So there's a lot going on, but I don't think midwives see it. They don't see it because they've all got mortgages. They've got cars. They're working their bums off 9 to 5. They can't even think straight because your email inbox is pinging at home. They have no space. They have no space to think about it. Whereas I decided to give myself space and I walked out and I never went back.
How was that decision?
Oh, so liberating. Best feeling ever.
Sorry, just before we go on to the next topic, the K booster, why did this K vitamin booster, what's the purpose did they say it's actually for?
That babies are born with low clotting factors. So if you're being born through a birth canal and the baby's skull is crossing over to come out, you're at risk of having a hemorrhage. But Jamie Freeman, Ellie Gray, they've written some fantastic stuff on this. And not even, again, I don't even believe I understand birth because the system's taught me I only know it as a woman. I need to now go on a journey of understanding real doula, the real birth keeper with herbs and other things. But there is a place for medicine. I do agree with that. There is a place for acute medicine. I wouldn't have survived in September when my appendix ruptured. Well, admittedly, I hung off as long as possible because I didn't want to go in there. I nearly died. But
that's where it's pushing us to not trust in the system, to not trust our doctors. I had a police whistleblower on yesterday. She said she wouldn't even phone the police anymore. Yeah. She was a call handler and a girl called, a rape victim called, and the guy next to her said, slut, to the rape
That's
victim.
Izzy, isn't it? Yeah. I've seen her stuff. It's disgusting.
You think, what the fuck? And,
but I rang the police about this, about being told I was going to go missing. They said it wasn't a threat.
Yeah, but it makes you angry. If you're oblivious, you're not angry because you think you're believing in everybody. But when you actually know, it can make you angry, and the streets should be packed for people want a revolution. Things need to change. The numbers are coming down for humanity. Everybody's fighting. People don't want to have kids anymore. The family system is broken down. Everything's backwards. We've got full of vaccines. We're full of germs. We're full of hate. We're full of rage. And it's difficult to then, will we ever see a better world now that we're in it? I don't know, I don't think so, but if we can try and leave the blueprint and the understanding for the younger generation, well, I'm saying that, the younger generation is a bit fucked, if I'm honest, with the iPads and tablets. I think people are waking up to how damaging it is. They call it popcorn brain. For anybody watching or listening, look into that. The attention span's coming down, so our next generation are fucked. So I can't really see who's going to really push through and make the changes, you know, because it's 95%, 99% of the world. It's a big part of the population who just follow suit and want to be led and guided, but we're being led and guided by the wrong people, the people who don't care, the people who are full of greed, the people who are full of hate themselves, and we're believing in those people, we're believing in the schooling system, we're believing in vaccines, we're believing in our doctors, but really they're not creating healthier, more mature people, you know. There's no creativity, there's no individuality, it's just shut down, memorise this, believe this, and you'll be a great little worker for our big corporations. So when you left then, how was the decision? When did you start really looking into it and start blowing the whistle on it all?
Well, I had to be quite careful because they held me hostage in a way. So the NHS don't give you anything for free, apart from a COVID vaccine, of course. Or a PCR test.
Anything that's given for free, you've got to question it.
Absolutely.
Porn is free, vaccines are free.
Yeah.
Why?
And insulin's not free, but yeah, it's my life-saving treatment. It's free for prescription, but they still bill for it.
Even when you go down a supermarket, you'll tend to see there's a nice healthy options. But what the fuck does that say about 99% of the other options in there? Why is the health? Yeah, of course, and then you've got all this shit. Everything you get into a petrol station, it's all just, it's like Vegas. It's just all lights and colours, and I still gravitate towards bar of chocolate, packet of crisps, and it's so wrong, but it's just old learnt behaviours. So you then seen the light, you then decided enough's enough, but they held you hostage. How so?
Because I walked out and I really didn't give any reason why I was going at that point, but they still paid me my 8 weeks pay. And at the time I didn't understand why they did that, but since I've received my data subject access request, it now all makes sense. It's pieced that puzzle together. So when I left, I had to be careful because what I didn't want was to have to go through a fitness to practice for whistleblowing because I was still on the register. So I started a movement called the With Women Movement on Facebook with a couple of witches, I'm going to call them, because they've obviously all turned on me now. because they had their own agenda on it. And this is the worst thing. Women, when they are together, are evil to each other. Evil. I mean, I've done some horrible things to some of my girlfriends in the past, and you look back and you think, oh my good God, I was all through trauma. I didn't take any responsibility. But when you start looking through this whole whistleblowing process and unpicking it, you realise that these people were either sent to disarm me, or they generally were just egotistical and they wanted the limelight, but didn't want to actually take it to the extreme that I have. And I can't work with people like that. You have got to be out there. That's the end of it. You can't hold back, because that's what this is about, saving people's lives. So I started a movement, and I had the BBC, Sky. I was going to walk from Scotland to John O'Groats with a beacon of light, and I was going to take every story and I was going to publish it on YouTube and Rumble. And after, again, I say this because I can't remember which order they came in, because I was quite traumatized at the time. The baby killer stuff came out online, but then I also got told by one of the directors at the hospital that people go missing overnight that whistleblow. And it disarmed me. I'm not going to lie. That would disarm anyone. But after a few months, I then tried to continue as if nothing had happened. And then I thought, I need some time. I've got some unresolved traumas here, because if I'm going to go out there, I've got to get to a point where I love Katie Hopkins. She does not give a shit what anybody thinks about her. And that's the place I've got to. I'm not unkind about anybody, though. I wouldn't call people fat or, that's her.
Need to be,
That's her.
That's her
sometimes, I'm not going to lie, some of the stuff she says is hilarious. But we all saw a narrative of her before. And we all judged, oh God. But would I have shared Katie Hopkins stuff back then? No, because midwifery would have said, that's unethical, you shouldn't be doing that. But now I'm older and wiser, I realise there's something painted about you, and then you've got to look beyond it. So I knew there was something brewing within maternity against me, and I went back into myself and did some inner work, and I just shut everything down. And then in November, I opened Twitter because I knew that Elon had removed the censorship. So I went on Twitter and I thought, I'm going to be private for a minute, and I'm just going to put some documents out and some bits and bobs and not make out it was me. And then in the January, when I actually decided to go live, I think it was the 19th of Jan, I thought, right, I'm going to put my face to this now. I'm ready. And I didn't tell my husband again, because I always know when I do something, if I do it myself, it's me, it's all on me. And I put up my picture, and I put that I'm a whistleblowing midwife. And in not even 12 hours, I had 16,000 followers. It went mad. So I knew I'd hit something at the right time, and I wasn't in a group. I didn't have a campaign. I didn't have a website. I was just being me and being authentic, and it just went bang. So obviously I'm only in July and I've got 32,000 followers, and on Twitter I've gone up to 12,000 in 10 days. So it's that I've hit something, and it isn't about the blame. It's because I'm bringing the truth. And I think when you start unpicking the fact that we've talked about the health and what that's done to women, when I talk about this next bit, which is the element of midwifery and the management, you'll see how the two do not work in conjunction with each other. Midwifery management are against public safety. They are there for the reputation of the hospital, a bit like the police force, a bit like any of them, GP surgeries. Do not bring the trust into disrepute. So the middle management are there to gatekeep against those that are trying to fight to say, patients are dying, this isn't okay. And they're like, no, no, no. And these documents have shown me that now.
So how, when you then go through that process, and with the scaremongering as well, everything's fear. We don't speak out because of fear. We don't do certain changes in life because of fear. We're scared of the unknown. We're scared of what if it doesn't work, instead of the question, what if it does work? What if I'm right? What if everything that I've learnt is wrong? Everything I've learnt from a fucking young age is wrong anyway. But when you're kind of going through that process, was that when you started saying, okay, I've made the right decision? When you started getting support, when you start to put your face on it? Because I think it's important to put your face on it in case anything does go wrong, because there's always going to be both sides of the fence. There's always going to be lovers, there's always going to be haters. No matter what you do, no matter if it's positive or negative, you still get support. But when you start going through the motions of it, how damaging is it for the people around you as well? Because everybody only has your best interests at heart, because everybody else is scared, but when you go, fuck it, I'm all in, does it affect the people around you?
Yeah. It's not been easy for my family to see me, because I'm the matriarch in the house. I'm a strong presence. My son calls me as Queen, and Queenie, or calls me Marge. just a real loving home. We're a very loving home. And I think seeing me so broken over the last 5 years particularly, but the demise of me was the rise of me. Now, I think what I had to do, and this is how sickening, and I've never talked about this before, I had to write down all the things that could happen to me and write them and journal them. So when I'm running, because I'm a runner, when I'm running, what if a black van comes along and you've got your headphones in and they pick you up? What are you going to do? So I did that. I had to work through that. What happens if they break my arms and legs? What happens if they rape me? What happens if they slice the necks of my children? I had to go through all of this deeply. My husband doesn't even know I'm probably even saying this. I've never had this conversation with anybody. And today I decided the whole truth was going to come out. So when you start writing, you're going to go missing. What does that look like? Does that look like when Wayne Couzens took that girl off the street, Sarah Everard? I went through every bit of detail. I went through every whistleblower death. I went through every whistleblower that had gone missing. And I started looking behind it. And I went into the place of, I visited death. What does it look like? Am I scared? No. Am I scared? No. Okay, I'm at the door of death. And I'm not frightened anymore. And I think that was what did it. I just said, humanity deserves to know the truth above my life. And that doesn't make me a martyr. That's just my authenticity and my integrity. And the amount of people that run, I don't blame them.
And what is the truth?
That the NHS is a cult. That the NHS is run by the monsters above that have tried to assassinate us on every level, whether it's through food, water, farming, through vaccines, schooling. I mean, they're all linked. They're all interlinked. The police, the child sex scandals, the child rape scandals, they're all linked and nothing is ever resolved. And you find this when people do data subject access or they try to do freedom of information, you never get the truth. You get snippets of truth.
What needs to change in the NHS then for more protection for our human beings, more protection for women, more protection for men, more protection for kids, more protection for everyone? What needs to change?
They do not serve us, we serve them. We are in control of the NHS. It's ours. It's our humanity. It's our health. They don't own us. That needs to change. It needs to flip. And the only way that's going to happen is when people wake up that the vaccines are not fully safe. They're not evidenced. Go and do your research. That will stop you and maybe start thinking about what other drugs you're giving to women and other patients. Why do we need to give so many drugs? Look at the parameters of blood pressure. The parameters have changed in 20 years. Cheryl Granger and Debbie Evans talk about this a lot. The NHS app, do not digitalise your stuff. Do not engage or consent or give permission for digital ID. CBDCs, don't get involved with it. But everybody's now going down this road and they're slowly sucking you into the next part of their agenda, under the Agenda 30. So for me, patients need to have more autonomy, more body autonomy, more choice, and that if it's emergencies, yes, you go. But if it's not and you need a simple fix, start looking at other people outside of the system. Asking people, you might have to invest money in looking at more private healthcare outside of the system. It's the only way. These middle managers are placed. They're not recruited. They're strategically placed like a chessboard. That's why I never got a job as a manager. My colleague pulled me aside and said, you smashed that interview, but they will never give you the job.
It's the same as when lockdown said. They said the hospitals were packed and NHS were struggling, but they were empty.
They were empty.
They were all good enough to dance for TikTok and make videos and like they were all empty. The streets are empty now. So what's this paperwork here you've got? Let's go through every bit that you need to expose and get out there. What is it from the start?
So I received on Friday, so the Nursing and Midwifery Council is the governing body that governs the midwifery practice and nurses. And last year, they were condemned by the BBC after a cultural investigation as toxic. So I've shared that post. I said that they were toxic. So did Sky TV. There were 16 nurses that committed suicide whilst pending investigations. Now, we know that a lot of referrals to the NMC are malicious because they want to disarm the midwife that might be onto something, or the nurse. So I've never been referred to a fitness to practice before because my career really is exemplary. I've had no patient complaints. I've had no staff complaints. I've never been made aware of them. If there are, I've never known about them. And I've never had any sanctions placed on my practice. So when I left, I felt I'm a pretty decent person to be able to do this. So when I left, I did a data subject access to the Nursing and Midwifery Council, which has taken over a year to be received in my hands. And the only thing they sent me was this document, which is a fitness to practice referral against me for whistleblowing. So under the public interest disclosure, you are allowed to whistleblow. Now, just going to touch upon, during my career, I raised 3 grievances: bullying, harassment, patient safety, because they weren't treating me right with my diabetes. I wasn't having any breaks. So staff were having 12.5-hour shifts with no breaks, not a single bit of water. And they took the cup of tea off us. We weren't allowed to even drink tea at the desk anymore. But managers can sit in their office, overweight and stuff donuts in their trap, while we're out there on the floor doing the grassroots hard work, funding their pockets on the worst wage, £21 an hour. I took home £1,500 a month as a midwife, £1,500. My rent is £900 nearly. So you're already talking that you're in a deficit once you've paid your council tax and everything else. So I was quite shocked, because what I wanted to receive from the Nursing and Midwifery Council was everything about me that anyone had ever sent. But what they sent me was this one document, which implicates my head of midwifery, Charlotte Wilton. Now, Charlotte referred me to the NMC, and she's written in here that the reason why she's referring me is because I've commenced a few campaigns that undermined public confidence in the service at UHP, which is Derriford Hospital, and more generally about UK services. Are you aware that maternity services are in a bad state?
Yes.
Are you aware? Why are you referring me for that reason? That's not a reason to refer a midwife. If that makes you uncomfortable, that's not my problem. She also puts in here that it's upset colleagues. Colleagues are upset because I'm talking about patient safety online. Now, I want to just say, one of the things I put up was, why did I leave midwifery? Have your say on maternity services. I also put up, UK nurse regulator condemned over toxic culture, BBC. I also put up, NHS bosses destroy careers of whistleblowers who stood up to protect patient lives, The Telegraph. How is that me scaring the public? These documents are live. Now, what's interesting, there's a midwife called Midwife Miller on TikTok. TikTok star Midwife Miller pushed out of job by jealous colleagues, BBC. So they're referring me for whistleblowing, which is against the law because I'm protected. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this to the highlight is because I raised concerns internally for the rights of the people. I'm also trying to get better working conditions for the midwife so they're not implicated, a bit like the Lucy Letby thing we're now on the fence about. Something's not right there. Because I've seen them destroy midwives' lives for one error, but they've done many errors themselves. So internally, I had raised 3 grievances. And on my appeal outcome, it said that maternity had a culture and that they were going to be undergoing an NHS England cultural investigation. So I was really proud of myself, although the bullying and everything else wasn't upheld. Now, inside that grievance, there was nothing about me as a midwife. There was nothing, no complaints. There was nothing that I'd been difficult, because I, James, had been very poorly with my diabetes. And I'd gone from being on no meds to lots of meds to insulin, then learning how to use all the insulin titration. And I had to change it every day depending on the ward I was on. None of those midwives cared about that. They still didn't give me breaks. I had to fight to get an employment tribunal to get breaks. It was ridiculous. But not only that, in that instance, 3 other midwives had grievances for disability discrimination, for no breaks, and it's impacting patient safety. So my boss, from my data subject access request that came in from the hospital on Friday, when I sent her my grievance, I'm going to read this out to the public. On the 18th of October 2021 at 12:36, I emailed my boss, Charlotte Wilton, and my union representative, Sally Freeland of the Royal College of Midwives, and I submitted a formal grievance. Please find attached my formal grievance. As per trust policy, I provided shifts that I booked and paid for, paid childcare. This was I then mentioned about my case conference and the allocated shift, and it was having a knock-on detrimental effect to my diabetes. And attached to that was my grievance, which outlined the staff and outlined all my concerns. And this is the response that my boss sent to HR. And this is HR who actually investigated me. This formal grievance has come in. I'm now on annual leave for 2 weeks, but do not want to leave it sitting in my inbox. Can I have your advice on next steps? Unfortunately, this will be a complex case as multiple counter-allegations with multiple managers now not wishing to line manage Victoria Rickson. She later on went to reiterate in her another email, which I haven't brought with me, I've realised it's over there, saying...
Do you want to get it?
No, it just reiterates it's there. I'm going to post it all online after you send this out anyway. I thought I'd give you first dibs.
Thank you.
And it actually says, again, VR is a very complex character. So she's defamed me to the very people that need to be non-biased to investigate this fairly to ensure that patients do not die. That was in 2021 on the 18th of October. Not long after this, a baby died. And there was a huge investigation into it. My grievance and multiple grievances were ignored. So the managers at the top are then talking about you in emails to the very people that need to be non-biased to investigate fairly, because their job is to make sure this doesn't go formal. They've even written they want it to go informal so it stays off the record, and that patients, you're not allowed to talk about it with patients. So if you're trying to scramble at patient safety and make sure no one dies, and you're in the middle of a pandemic, why is your first response not, my goodness, I'm ever so concerned that Victoria Rickson's not been eating and drinking and she's diabetic, which also means that patients are at risk because she's not thinking straight. She might make a drug error that could be fatal. I'm really concerned about this. We need to address this immediately. I have got dozens of emails that show and implicate. They've even disclosed that the midwife, Ricky, the male midwife, in one of my documents that he was in some sort of investigation, because they have to tell you when it's your data, they have to provide it to you, but they've talked about another midwife in my email. So it goes to show there is no transparency, that middle management are gatekeepers for the top dogs, that they will do anything to make sure patients are not safe. So these documents prove, and they've also proven here, to breach my data. So under GDPR, data protection regulations, my employer, not long after I left, shared all my personal details with a debt collection agency and have written here that they're not willing to disclose who they disclosed it to and who did it. So they're actually denying under the GDPR law. So not only have they breached GDPR, now going back to Charlotte Wilton, when she referred me, she actually disclosed my medical information. So she wasn't referring me about my poor practice and she's even written in here, did the midwife raise the concerns on a broad level? Yes. She also writes that, has the midwife had any complaints? No. And the hardest bit about this, James, was my friend Kaylee, who was at my home birth, who I looked up to, she was my hero, and she's a beautiful midwife. She screenshotted my Facebook and sent it to my boss, and has implicated me in this because her profile picture was never deleted. And that's my friend that speaks to me and has screenshotted. It doesn't matter, it's a public document. But this is what midwifery is like.
So what did she do that for?
Don't know. I don't care. She's gone. She's out. But this is what I'm talking about in midwifery.
Why would they keep that in and show you, though?
Because they've now implicated her. And why would they only send me Charlotte Wilton's document? Because the NMC want me to take the pressure away from the public pressure I've been putting on them on the line to deal with the things I've been telling them about patient safety, about covering up baby deaths, about the incident reporting that I've done. And they hid and downgraded it internally, which should have gone to a full investigation. So they are now wanting me to take the pressure off the NMC by throwing someone else under the bus. And this is what happens. And this is really sad. And I'm not doing this to make Charlotte or Kaylee uncomfortable or anybody. This is the facts. This is the documentation. So not only are you talking about me internally and sabotaging any rights to patient safety, not long after that, a baby died. And that's the baby I'm being implicated that I killed.
They try to blame you for that?
The a ex-Tory councillor did, yes. Not the family.
How hard was that one?
Brutal.
That's the worst thing you can...
I thought the police were coming for me, James. I really thought the police were coming. I removed myself off the register because I thought they're going to throw me in prison. I was petrified. Petrified. Now, that case is in a defamation and we're going to court because no one can provide any documents to say that, James, I wasn't even on shift. They've even put here, they can't even give me the off duty. I wasn't on shift when the baby died. I wasn't there at the birth. It is a mistaken identity or mistaken communication somewhere. But what's concerning is this is why nothing in midwifery will change if the public do not understand and do not see that management who are paid £80,000 a year are lying in emails.
But it's the assassination of character as well.
Exactly.
Because then when you do speak out, people go, well, that's the crazy woman that killed the baby.
Yeah.
It's easy to deflect. That's what they're very good at, especially myself, who's built the biggest independent podcast in the UK where people get a fair choice to say their side from their things without getting twisted. Nobody gets fucked over. And then you become a target. I always knew they would come anyway. I just didn't think I wasn't at that level, but fuck it, I'm always ready for the fight anyway. And it is what it is. So what happens now then with that? How can they then throw you under the bus for something you weren't there with? Is that not good then for you to prove everything that you're saying is right?
Absolutely. And I think they've sent me this deliberately. They've not redacted any of the names.
So where do you go with it, the baby death?
Oh, that's defamation. That's in the High Court. We're just waiting. I've got a solicitor and a barrister, and they have been amazing because I don't have any money, and they've done this no win, no fee. They have been amazing, but that they're not arguing because the coroner has given his verdict. So, and I don't wish to talk about the name because I don't believe the family need that. They need that. There are 2 bereaved babies that we're talking about in regards to this case. But I think once that's through, I then make decisions about how I then talk about that next. I just need to wait to see of the outcomes. But you wouldn't believe that 2 of the people that called me a baby killer are midwives. Midwives writing online that I killed a baby. So I'm really highlighting to the NHS and the NMC publicly. I've got midwives over here calling me this that you're doing nothing about. I've got managers talking about me that have never proved that in any outcome that I have a complex character or because I point at you, I point the mirror at you and say, what's this bringing up in you? Because this is just highlighting the depths of systemic bullying within midwifery that everybody's been highlighting. And I've now got documents to say that. This morning, somebody told me something yesterday that a midwife in my hospital gave nail varnish remover to a woman thinking it was Gaviscon and she drank it. I've been told there have been complaints that the IV drip that's going into your vein was dropped in a cup of tea and the midwife shook it off and went to reattach it. These things are what the public need to know. It's those small things that can kill you. Not that necessarily the big things, it's the small things. It's the unsubtle near misses that create trauma. And what happens is the women are not getting their cases fully heard. Why? Because they're covering themselves under the corporate veil. So really what should happen if a baby has died at a birth and you have caused that death in any way, shape or form, you should be talking about that in a courtroom with the family if that's what they want. I believe that. I truly believe that. And you shouldn't be able to hide under the corporate veil. Because what they do is, their job, James, is to make the least minimal reputational damage to the hospital. Their other problem is to have the minimal cost. So what they do is they go through a line and they think, right, where's the easiest place to get out? Right, we'll accept communication, that we failed in communication and we'll pay that off. And that's how they get around it. But no one really gets the truth. The families still go on in their lives going and knowing in their heart something else was wrong and they can never find it out. And until this all comes to the surface, I believe every case that's ever been heard needs rehearing. We can't trust our judicial system. We can't trust the coroners. We can't trust any of them.
Do you believe there's been a lot of baby deaths and it's swept under the carpet as if nothing's been wrong and the parents just got on with it, believing in the system, believing in their doctors when really they're at fault?
Yeah.
But not every baby death is to be blamed on doctors or NHS, of course, but do you believe there's a lot more darkness to it than what people think?
Yeah.
How bad?
I've since learned about the placental costs, $50,000 placental stem cells. That makes sense to me now, because during a birth on labour ward in, I think it was 21 or 22, the family weren't allowed to have their own family with them because of social distancing and numbers. But yet the stem cell researcher was allowed to come in, stand outside the door and wait. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All makes sense.
So we get taught to cut the umbilical cord straight away. Why shouldn't people cut the umbilical cord?
Well, I've never cut it straight away. We're taught that you cut it when it stops pulsing. But actually, the more I look into it, it should just be cut once the placenta's delivered, because the body's not ready. There's a signalling on anything, isn't there? There's a signal for your cell to tell another cell to tell another cell to tell your lung to take oxygen and then breathe. Yeah? So why are we interfering with an organ that has a job to do through the cord? I'm wondering now, and I'm thinking about this more, is that why we've got more bleeding? Yes, we've got the vaccines, which have caused bleeding. But now I'm thinking, are we cutting the cord for a ritualistic reason? Yes, there is a ritualistic reason behind it. We know that we don't know where these placentas go.
Yeah, it's for stem cells.
I don't know where the placenta goes. Where's my placenta? Where did it get incinerated? Where's the record of it? My argument now is, holy hell, the amount of placentas I've delivered and put in an orange bag, where is it?
Where did it go?
Don't know. There's no trail. And under GDPR, I can't check it. Don't check up anyone's records.
Surely there must be a trail of where the umbilical cord and the placentas, everything goes.
No idea.
That question, but do you believe if babies are dead, do you believe their organs could be took?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes. Not seen it, but spoken to people that have seen it. John O'Looney being one of them.
What did they say?
John O'Looney told me that, so at the height of COVID, the babies that died during COVID diverted away from the normal funeral directors. Did you know that?
No.
So normally what would happen is the funeral directors have a relationship with the hospital. They go to the mortuary and they take the baby or the person or the man or woman, and they take them to the funeral director. In COVID, the babies were diverted away from all the normal funeral directors, and they were diverted to a new man-made mortuary and funeral director, which was under the NHS. So when he went to a funeral, he looked on the board and it would say what funeral director is running the funeral. And it was a hospital. Now, how can a hospital run a funeral? So when he was receiving babies back from parents, their organs were missing, and he said, I couldn't believe it, that parents never, ever consented it. So we know from things like Kate Shimarani saying and other people that now there is money in organ harvesting. One of the reporters that reported on the London 2020 and did quite a lot of work around the child sex trafficking behind the London 2020, they've just done a really good article called Not the Settler, I think they're called. And the article came out, I think it was late last year, that 14 women had gone to Turkey to have mum bods or whatever you call it. And they came back with no organs. Died on the table and just went to have their tummy tuck. So there's a lot going on here outside this culturalistic, this part. So the people on the ground think they're doing everything right. Well, actually, you're making lots of mistakes and not realising their mistakes. And then you go up to the middle management, and the middle management are no longer practising. They're now being fed from the top. Make sure nobody ever puts this trust in disrepute. Make sure you get the most minimalistic charge out of the cost of this case. Make sure you pull together that all of this case is never ever leaked to anybody else. And then you go up another level, and what are the directors doing? So my ex-director shares Freemason stuff on TikTok, on Twitter. Now we know what the Freemasons are. So it's dark. I know it's dark, and I know it feels scary to talk about it, but we need to start having these conversations properly. Now, the one thing that I will say about the information that's come out of the case with the, being held responsible for the death of a baby, I don't know if this is fully accurate yet, and I'm waiting on the documentation, but it looks like potentially a midwife has lied in their coroner's statement. Now, if you've lied under oath on a coroner's statement, that's perjury, and you've perverted the course of justice. So once all this comes out in the case, if that is the case, I will be making sure that midwife stands to account, and I will be informing the coroner of a change in circumstances with regards to that case.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here that has been unearthed, which is why people say, Vic, stay safe, Vic, keep your family safe, Vic, this, don't do this, don't do this. I go back into my heart space and it tells me, to keep going.
Yeah. And the thing is about these podcasts as well, sometimes, like, we aren't doctors, we aren't scientists.
No.
We can only go with the information that we get, the jobs that you've worked in. But what is a perfect birth then? What in an ideal world, what should it be? Because we don't want to give somebody the wrong information. Somebody then follows our advice. Something goes wrong. Before you know it, we're on the front page. These two have killed this or done this. And that's what they like to do. Discredit, disharm, destroy you so you don't have a voice. But what is a natural birth for you? What should be the perfect birth for a woman? Everybody's different. Everybody's bodies are different. Everybody's medical records are different. But what should in an ideal world, what is the perfect birth?
I think that is 100 years ago, that would have been an easy answer. That women would be labouring in the kitchen while they were making their pie with their pastry, and they would have gone into the lounge and popped a beautiful baby out and continued breastfeeding and got on with their life. We aren't in that position anymore because we're sick. So I think I would like to highlight, I have done many elective C-sections and they have been beautiful. You know, the doctors where I worked would go above and beyond to make sure that women had everything they wanted in that birth. And I'm not saying that my doctors, I've never seen malpractice. That's the truth. I've never seen a doctor harm anyone deliberately or do anything. But what I think is important is anything that is harmed, the patient, under patient safety and the truth, that people should know what's happening. So these things are learnt from both angles. So I think for me, the perfect birth for me would be that I wouldn't have any scans. I would have a scan potentially to find out where my placenta is, because if it's covering my cervix, the os they call it, then I would probably die in childbirth. But I'm in the place now that if I die in childbirth, that was my ending. I'm not going to have a doctor sabotage me in labour and then kill me. That's different. I've chosen my birth. So I think it's really important that we understand that for someone that says, do you know, I don't want a vaginal birth, I want a cesarean section, that's her perfect birth. But what I'm concerned about is that people are making fear-based decisions, as you've even highlighted, with your own pregnancy. They're not making heartfelt decisions. They're making fear-based, which means, are they really getting the birth that they want? And now you're seeing a flood of women go to doulas and birth keepers who are picking up a hell of a lot of flack now. They are picking up sick women. They're even learning how to deliver dead babies because people don't want to go to the NHS. This is what's happening. And my worry is, James, doulas and birth keepers do great work. There are some people that are toxic in that, and there's some people toxic in midwifery that aren't, and some people are great. And you find that in any walk of life and any profession. But my concern is what's going to happen is the hospital are showing you, we talk about karmic debt, yeah? If they show you, they don't have to be repaid in any karmic way. So they're showing the women and the midwives that the NHS is done for in maternity. It needs a full reform, okay? So what women are doing is they're going, oh my God, I can't go near the hospital. I'm going to go and get a doula. I'm paying a doula, which is great. But have they made that from a love space? That they didn't want to do that? No, they've made it from a fear base. They then go to a doula, which is great. And doulas will work with you to come out of that fear. And then some women will go, I want to go back to the hospital. And that's brilliant. But some people aren't doing that. And what's happening is the statistics of home births are going to increase harm and outcome as bad because of vaccines and sickness and illness. And the doulas are picking this up because there's not enough midwives to do this. And what are the government going to do? The statistics have changed at home. Doulas aren't safe.
Yeah, and they're going to go back.
And they're going to go back to the system again. Yeah. And I can see it. I can see it. And it's not even frustrating because we've got to just watch this pan out. But I think it's really important that any woman that wants to have a birth of her choice, she goes to the hospital. And I say this to any woman, go to the hospital, talk to your doctor. You will only be given a 15-minute slot and say, thank you. I'm going to take everything away and research and I'll come back. They won't allow you to come back because there's no space. But you are the person that they are serving. So you demand your right under the human rights and say, I want to come back and I want to speak to you about this to make the right decision. And that's what needs to flip. People need to start taking responsibility for their health, their birth, their children's birth, their grandchildren's birth. That's where that's where we need to start changing this at the grassroots down. But
it's a quick fix for people. People caught up in their jobs, caught up in the stresses. They just want to make sure their kid's safe, which is totally understandable. They go to their doctors. They believe in their doctors. So if they get these certificates or take these tablets or we'll give you this vaccine, it just helps with this and that. People are believing in it.
Yeah.
So it's sad. But what should people really do to research and question the things that you're saying, question the things that I'm saying, just to gather as much information as you can so you can then make a better judgment on a better life for your kid. Now, if you want to be a good mother or a good father, it's important that you look into this stuff. Don't just listen to this podcast or watch it and go, yeah, whatever. Listen, look into certain things. Look what you're giving your kids. Look at the vaccinations that they're giving your kids, the foods, the formulas that they're trying to give you. Like, look into breastfeeding, look into the umbilical cord, look into your placenta, just look into how things are naturally meant to be. Look into doulas, look into water buffs. Kids are born in water, they come out naturally. I think kids can come out swimming. I believe they can swim underwater because they're in water for 9 months. So it is important just to look into certain things and then question it. And then if you want to go to the NHS, if you want to go wherever you want, that's your choice. Nobody should be against that. And if you feel safer with getting a vaccine, by all means, that's your choice. Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but when you look into it and you look into the causes, the rise in autism, the rise in ADHD, autism wasn't around many years ago. It's just all of a sudden it's one of the most fucking spoke about things now. And you've got mercury in your vaccines and just certain things. Just look into the rise in ADHD and autism and all these labels. Why is that around? Is it because we're getting more vaccines? Possibly.
But they tell you not to have tuna because there's high mercury in tuna. And then they give you a vaccine at 28 weeks that's got high mercury in it.
How many vaccines does a pregnant woman get?
So what they're encouraging is that pregnant women through winter have a COVID booster before to get pregnant. It's still on the NHS website. It's horrific. I actually feel physically sick when I think about the harm to life and women, and women think they're doing the right thing. And then at 28 weeks, which beautifully, I have a book that I was given from an ex-lecturer, and it's a 1938 midwifery book, and it goes back to before the NHS. So the wording and the language is absolutely beautiful in it. And I'm like, oh, don't listen to this, read this, because it's ancient, like older midwifery. So at 28 weeks, that's when your baby is actually viable. The parasympathetic and the sympathetic heart sets in play. The baby's now got a fight or flight system. It could survive if it was born, mostly. So that's when they vaccinate you. That's when they vaccinate you, and they vaccinate you in the winter with COVID, flu, and whooping cough all in one go, in 2 arms. And I just think, do you know, they've not given us the baby statistic deaths since 2023. They've hidden it.
Because of the rise in it?
Has to be. Anecdotally, across the world, we've all met. So I met with Dr. Kim Biss, Dr. James Thorpe. I've met with Dr. Tess Laurie. We've all talked about this. I know what I saw with the harm and the bleeding and the miscarriages, and even scanning are saying, I've spoke to somebody that works in sonography, they've never seen so many miscarriages. They've never seen so many strange brain abnormalities in babies in the womb. So now I know it's real. So at 28 weeks, you're giving all of that to that mum, and it's crossing the placenta. They know in mice now from the Peter McCulloch Foundation that baby mice are carrying the spike protein from their mother at 6 months old. What's the BBC done an article on not long ago? Vaccinate your baby at 6 months old. What the hell? So I think for me now as a mother, I say to my older boy and my daughter-in-law who's thinking about having children, read everything. I'm not even going to tell you. I just want you to always think, if there's this argument, where's the other side? A bit like politics at the minute. None of us know the bloody road to go down. None of us do. It's so conflicting. It's so confusing. And we're in an information war, aren't we? It's like,
yeah,
you get one article.
I don't choose any of them. I just think they're all full of shit. Donald Trump's full of shit. Elon Musk is full of shit. They're all full of shit. They all work together. To get to that elite level, you've got to be all in the same club. But now how can you then say Epstein hasn't got any client list when Ghislaine Maxwell's doing 20 years in prison? If you look at the photos and the videos of him and Donald Trump, they're very close friends. You know, it's all a big cover up. They all work together. Zelensky spoke about it yesterday. He was just a gay dancer, just dancing. It's just fucking cringe that these people shouldn't be running the world. They're not men. Putin, I actually think he is a man. I think he's quite strong. But again, I don't trust any of them. I just all think they work together. They just all, how do we then control the world at deeper levels, deeper states, keep the vibration down? Yeah, we're the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
But the sad thing is we are easily to control.
Yeah.
We are easily led. We're suckers. Even though we know this information, we're still part of the system. We're still involved in it, which is fucked up. You know, for anybody, any midwife watching or listening who's maybe want to question what you're saying and look into it, because obviously they don't want to lose their job, they don't want death threats, they don't want to be up on trial, because that's what they do. They try and silence you. Like, what would you then give information, would you give them to kind of do their own research and look into it? Because if you're a midwife, think you're doing a great job delivering babies, giving vaccines and thinking this will protect you, this is a K vitamin booster, this is for X, Y and Z, they believe in it. And why should they question it? Because it's the NHS, they're supposed to be saving lives and helping people. But how can they look into it and then question it? And what should they do if they start realising they've been fucked over?
Well, it's very difficult because most people will say, oh, you know, she's crazy, she's a conspiracy theorist, and I really, you know, that doesn't faze me because I'm true in my positioning where I am. But I think if midwives are doing anything right now, they should absolutely find a solicitor and write a sworn affidavit statement of truth and have it signed that the conditions that they're working in are real, because that will cover them in years to come if they're the next victim. Because midwifery is changing rapidly, daily, and they are all vulnerable. So for that instance, I'd be explaining that. Secondly, they need a good union representative. Now, most of them are with the Royal College of Midwives, which is one of the most richest unions in the world, and they never supported me through any of this. In fact, I found out they were all talking about me behind my back with the hospital. That's another problem. So you've got all these systems that are supposed to be put in place to help you. Those midwives have nowhere to go. They really don't. They have nowhere to go. They are trapped in the system. The only way to learn to get out of the system is to understand the system that you're in fully and understand who is forcing all this evidence and who's forcing all of this stuff. Now, evidence, yes, we use it and it does work, but who's paid the evidence? Who's written the evidence? A bit like the COVID evidence. Who wrote it? Who funded it? So you've got to look at those things. So I think for me, it's just making sure that midwives second think everything that they give. I did a post on this recently. If I were you, I'd never pick up another COVID vaccine and never give it again, or any vaccine. You need to be very careful what you're putting in someone's arm. But they'll lose their job, and this is a society we're in. There's still people who think like you, but they'll still do what they're doing because they're getting a wage. Yeah. This is a sick society because the money is the root of all evil. Yeah. You take away the money, you take away the greed, you take away the power. We kill for money, we die for money, but really there's no value to it. We're conditioned to believe it's got so much power, when really there's no power to it. Yeah. There's actually no power to a piece of paper, but yet look at the stuff that we do. We kill babies, kill mothers, kill fathers, destroying the universe, destroying the world. We create wars. We do all this destruction through money. The people who are behind the vaccines, the people who are behind the system, it's all about greed, it's all about power. Yep. And this is the sad truth of life. This is a sad truth that we need to understand. Not everybody's got our back, not everybody's got our true intentions. And like we says, people still do it because they're getting their pays, they've got their mortgage, they've got their kids to feed. So they're willing to destroy other lives just to benefit theirs. Now, I knew drug dealers, I sold drugs back in the day, I'd done bad stuff. And yet I was destroying other people's lives to benefit my own. Yeah. These guys that are a deeper level than that, they're a bigger level with the suits on and the ties. And like I say, I took many drugs, bought from drug dealers and done. In my mind, it was normal. It was just survival mode. Yeah. But then once you start to understand it, you go, wait a minute, you were bad then. Yeah. And you kind of have a dark period of your life, but that's karma. Because when you do bad, you will get bad. When you do good, you get good, but you'll still be tested. That's life, because you're strong enough to play those cards that you're dealt. But how can people then kind of question it all and look deeper into it without getting into trouble and without... It's difficult because you're either in or you're out. If you're believing that, what you're saying, then you shouldn't be in that job. Bottom line. But yet, what's people going to do? They're going to go homeless? Well, they can't. They can't. They have to do what their job is telling them to do. And that's what that comes down to, James, is your money. This is how repulsed I felt when I left. I had to change my bank account, so I never saw the word NHS on my bank statement ever again, because they repulsed me that much. Now, people will be like, that's really extreme. But when you walk the path I've walked and you see what I've seen and understand what I've seen and spoken to the people I've spoken to, you don't make it on someone like your podcast without giving so much back to humanity. Doesn't work like that, does it? You know that. I know that. So I know that the paperwork that I've got and the things that I'm seeing, they're true. And people either have to believe that or they don't. Now, the people that do know me know that I always fought. People always said, Vic, you always stick up for people. I can't bear injustice. But it's the problem that we've got is that the people in these systems are complicit to the problem. And until they leave and speak up, they'll always be part of the problem. They are the problem.
What's the worst thing you've seen involved with the NHS?
Probably, there's lots of different things, isn't there? There's practice outcomes, but like I said, I've never seen, and I've never seen somebody harm someone. I've seen midwives be bitches and spiteful backstabbing, like taking pictures of your social media and putting it under your boss's door. That I'm the kind of person that would go, you're an idiot, why did you do that?
Yeah, it's a rat.
You know, have a rant about it. But I think some of the worst practices I'd seen, and it came from a deep spitefulness within some of the staff towards each other. It was never, I never saw anything against patients. It was always the staff who were unhealed in those jobs, who were then inflicting their pain onto other people or being impatient on patients. I think I'll talk about a couple of stories. That there was a really young girl who was only 19 and had come into the hospital in COVID, and she was on her own. And I remember opening the door, and she was taller than me. And she was so frightened, James. She was shaking. And I was like, oh, darling, come in. And I put her in a bay, and we all had masks on. And I went into the room, and we took our masks off, obviously, took it down a bit, and we chatted. And she told me the saddest story, that her baby had died at 19 days old at home. And she was on the phone to the paramedics, and they came and took her baby into the ambulance. And the ambulance drivers weren't very, they were rushing because they were doing their part, but the windows were all open and everyone could see them working on her little boy, and he was tiny. And when she came back to hospital pregnant, she was in COVID and she wasn't allowed her partner with her. We put these women through that. She turned up at 19 years old at full term with no partner, petrified. She's never going to labour properly. She's never going to be able to cope with this because she's so traumatised by so much already. Now, what happened was, after she lost her son, they arrested her and her partner, thinking that they'd murdered their little boy. They were thrown into a prison cell. I get really emotional about this because that girl is so beautiful. Sorry. She's such a beautiful mum, like such a lovely mum. And I've been involved with their family ever since. And I don't just drop people. I don't. They stay with me in my heart. And she stayed with me. There's a couple of women that stayed with me in my heart. And when she was telling me this story, she said they made her dress a doll, feed a dolly, and they were horrendous for hours and hours and relentless. And nobody asked her how she was or how her bleeding was she breastfeeding, nothing. They couldn't give a shit about her. And they did the same to her partner because they're young. They categorised them, dead baby, young couple. And you know, they put her through so much trauma. She never was able to tell anyone that her son died because she was so ashamed, so people just never knew. That's disgusting. Our own country, our own policing, our own social services. And when she came in and had her beautiful baby, I broke the rules. I hugged her. Don't care, sack me. And I got her partner in. I said to my boss, I don't care, we're getting them in. And I brought her partner in and he stayed with her through the birth. And what was so heartbreaking was that they misdiagnosed how the baby died, and then they changed their mind and never apologised to her or her family. And she only talked about him, baby Oscar, when I spoke out, and she found me online. So that's one that really needs highlighting. And the other one is a beautiful friend of mine called Rebecca, and her beautiful little girl, who came in on the 5th of February to labour ward, having driven a mile apart from each other in the same village. We didn't know each other. By coincidence, we drove to the hospital at pretty much the same time and walked in there at the same time. And she came in because she was told to. my midwife said, if my waters break, I come to hospital, which she did. And she came in and I could hear her. And you, a bit like a father, you know your child's cry. You know if it's a high pitch, if they hurt themselves, if they don't breathe between the crying, they've really hurt themselves. As a midwife, you start learning what these cries and wails mean. And you can hear a if she's about to have a baby. You'll hear a scream if she's transitioning from 10 centimetres, 9 centimetres to fully to pushing. She'll have a whole different innate primal noise. And this lady, James, she laboured behind a curtain in my hospital all day from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. with absolutely no support. And she was a second-time mum. And she was high risk. She bled heavily previously, so she had an IV access. And the reason I want to highlight this is because it really matches in with some of the stuff I'm going to tell you about the management. But this lady, I went up there 3 times. What's going on with this lady? I'm nosy. I don't just leave things and go, that's someone else's problem. You don't walk over water on the floor that someone could break their neck on. I'm that person. I'd put the drip sign up to say risk of slipping. And I kept saying to my manager, there's a lady up there that's labouring now. On this particular day, James, there was only 2 midwives on labour ward, and it was heaving. We would have had 10 normally, 8 to 10. And the section list was double all day. So we had no staff, community had no staff, triage was staffed poorly. So I've now got a lady who's come in under the guise of safety. That's exactly what I talked about my ex. She believes she's coming into the place of safety. So we had, as staff, had been escalating through our reporting system that it was low staffing and patients weren't safe. And we got told off for doing that by our own managers. Patients need to know about that. They don't care about patients. They portray that they do. It's absolute bullshit. From the bottom of my heart, sorry, they do not care about you. You are just a number. You are just a figure on a balance sheet. End of story. They don't care about you, your name, where you come from, what you love, what your deep passion is, what you want from your birth. They do not care. It's a system not built for that. So this lady laboured all day on her own, and I got forced to go up when I had all my patients. I had my signature on everything, James. All the drugs, all the CTG monitoring. My name was everywhere. And my manager, Charlotte, used to call me the Wednesday wing woman because I was so supportive of my manager and would step up to the role of like a junior manager's role. So this is the person that's referred me that then called me the Wednesday wing woman. And that was my nickname because I was so good at my job. And I'm not just saying that, but I was very good at my job. I'm very methodical and I care about people. You can see that I care. When I went up to get this lady, because it got to the point, I thought somebody's going to die in a minute. When I pulled this lady to the room, this is the last baby I was ever at a birth. And I pray on that because I'm glad it's over. I'm glad they came to me, that I never have to be in that hole again. And this lady, Rebecca, was having an epidural very quickly because I knew we needed to relax her because she had been in such pain all day. When I went into the bay, she was biting the bed and she was bright red and I thought she looked like she had an infection. So, and women can become septic very quickly and die very quickly from sepsis. As you probably know, sepsis is a huge killer. It's one of the biggest killers in women. She said to me, I'm going to die, Victoria. I was like, you're not going to die. And then something said, she might die. She might die. So I got my boss in and said, she says she's going to die. And I said that, whereas most people don't have the courage to say those types of things because it sounds extreme, but it's not extreme. We've got the worst death rates ever in maternity, in women and babies. So we need to be listening. Long story short, not long after her baby came out, absolutely so unwell. You know, she took a little weird yelp and then just was gone. And I couldn't get a heart rate. I couldn't get anything. It was awful, James. Now, I talked about astral projection in my birth. Something happened to me in that room and I can watch myself in that room because I was so stressed from the trauma that this woman had been put through this. And my boss was amazing. She's an amazing midwife and I've got so much respect for her. But they'll be mad at me for doing this. I get it. I understand it because I'm poking at your profession. But she said to me after, you did nothing wrong. And I'm like, you're missing the point. You've missed the point. We failed these people. This can never happen again. So I day text, which is our internal reporting, that was a severe outcome with no staffing and a lady labouring, and now a baby's gone to NICU, which was on life support. They didn't know if that baby was going to live, and they told the family that. It was awful. So the next day I handed in my notice. Now what happened was that incident should have been investigated thoroughly. It was downgraded to a mild on the computer, which meant it never got investigated. That's how much they care about you. So I encouraged Rebecca to contact Charlotte Wilton and see her, which she did. And Charlotte Wilton told her and her husband that she was in the safest place and that she had the best care. And what Victoria did is what any midwife would do. And also the fact that I whistleblown. And Rebecca said, if Victoria hadn't put this online, I would never have known that I wasn't to blame. Because what do women do? They blame themselves straight away, which breaks down their relationships because their partners don't get it, because they're not meant to, because they haven't walked it, but they have in a different way. So my boss told my friend that she was in the safest place and that we don't investigate these types of cases, and that what Victoria's done, any midwife would do, but yet wrote in the fitness to practice referral that no midwife would do what I've done. And this is the corruption between midwives and women. I'm not surprised there is a lack of confidence between midwives and women. And these cases have destroyed this woman's life, like in so many ways. And I'm helping her so much with so much healing, but you can see the pain in her.
Yeah, fair play. What about the 9-month abortions where people can get abortions at 40 weeks? I put a post out, but I got a couple of things wrong, so I had to delete it. I hate deleting posts because normally the information I get is usually spot on and you kind of do your own research, but there was a couple of things I got wrong. So what is it with the 40-week abortion where people can still abort their babies? They shouldn't be allowed in my eyes, but what is it actually? Because people were saying it's a health and safety thing, it can be a good thing, but it's a fully grown baby at that point, you know. But what is the information with it?
Do you know what? I've realised my true sovereignty in the last 18 months. And your sovereignty is to do no harm to you or anyone else. I am not going to follow these politicians' clown ways. I refuse to give them my energy. So for me, I looked into it briefly. I haven't fully looked into it, but what I understand from it is that they're saying that it's no longer a criminal offence if women abort a baby up to birth. That's not saying that it will happen. But why would you be bringing that in if the next step is not to do it? How does a woman then abort a baby? So my concern there is that women of Ireland, for instance, would come to England for a termination of pregnancy because it was illegal in Ireland. And if you've been raped or, something awful has happened to you, I do believe that women should have a choice. Is that my choice now? As I've learned about life and what the meaning of life is, a baby is an absolute divine blessing. And whatever age you're at and it arrives, it's meant to be there for whatever reason. But my concern with the decriminalising abortion up to 9 months is, what message does that send? How is someone interpreting that? Because how you interpreted it, which you're entitled to do, by the way, your interpretation of information is personal to you. Just because someone says that's not what it means doesn't mean it's not right for you. So whilst a young girl at 17's got pregnant and concealed her pregnancy from her family, now knows to get an abortion at term, she's not going to be penalised. What message does that send? How is that girl then? What's she going to do next? Oh, I might Google how to take a pill. What pill do I need? Oh, I can buy that on TikTok. I can buy that on eBay and take it. She then thinks that might kill her baby. Now, whilst that drug might kill a baby at 20 weeks, potentially, and then bring on labour, and then a baby will be born and die, that's not going to happen for a term baby. So what happens to a live baby that then comes out? What are we then going to start seeing? That's my concern. So there's a huge sadistic agenda that how can these people, women, sit in that parliament and agree that I understand that women shouldn't be criminalised for choices, because that's not fair. A bit like men, when men become their masculine energy, doesn't mean they're all murderers. And this is the message. They're messing with all of our heads constantly. That agenda that day blew up on X. It went absolutely crazy. And I went on a 6-hour podcast about it and we talked about it, and it's caused huge confusion. So this is why, James, I'm like you. I don't follow any of them. What we need to remember is we are sovereign, and we have been brought into a corporation world, a clown world. And for us to remember exactly who we are, go and read your Magna Carta. Go and remember that the people overturned King John. And it's still not rebutted, because you cannot rebut old law, and it stands today. Remember who you are. Remember where you've came from. Doesn't mean you have to go out and riot and protest and cause harm. But we need to be remembering who we are. And the Irish are setting a massive precedent. And I think Scotland will be next, because it's the Celtic deep blood within you all. I get it. I understand it. I don't condemn any harm of anybody. But I'm getting to the point, I think, we have forgotten who the hell we are because the corporation has stolen every bit of our lives. And what did they say? You will have nothing and you will not be happy. And that's exactly what is happening. So remember your old laws, the Treason Act, the Coronation Act. They are still standing laws today, and none of us know about them. I do. I know about them all, which is why I don't pay council tax, which is why I've just fought it in the courtroom with Jacobs, who bullied me every day for 14 days. And the judge turned out to still slap me with a £5,000 cost order, even though he admitted it was harassment. That's how corrupt this is. It runs deep. And people have forgotten who they are because they're on a treadmill. They've got a tell a lie vision on their head with their phone, and they're on a treadmill walking into London. You see it everywhere. Just stop and think and give your time, give your space back to yourself. Honour yourself and remember who you are.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at.
We don't want free thinkers though. We want people controlled. We want people, good little workers, good boy, do your work, never complain. Yeah. We're just going to keep brainwashing you to then take this, feel this. We'll condition you how we want you to feel and think. Yeah. What sort of stats are scary for people to look into with child births and all the other stuff with the NHS? Is there any stats that are standing out where people need to look into and question it themselves?
Yeah, I think everybody should be reading all the inquiries. Bill Kirkup inquiry into Morecambe Bay, Donna Ockington's reports, they should all be read. But then you should also go into your background, what's behind it. We all know when the agenda comes out, there's always something behind it, isn't there? There's no in with an out. There's no yin with a yang. Law of physics, there's always something on the opposite side. So if they're giving you their narrative, there is another narrative, there's another road. And I think everybody should be looking beyond the Embrace reports, which is the reporting statistics of all the hospitals that then tell the public, well, where's the baby deaths through COVID? Where are they? Why have we not got them? We didn't get them last year. It's the first time since time began, since they've been reporting it. So I think everybody should just be looking behind their policies and questioning, well, what does this mean? Why haven't we got some natural remedies in NHS? Why? Why can't we use medicines for bleeding, which they use in doula work? Why not? I know I'd rather have a plant medicine than a bloody drug. Again, it's not evidence-based. It's not evidence practice. James, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2019. And they told me that I would be on insulin for the rest of my life. I was on 100 units of insulin when I was a midwife a day. When I left, it went down to 33% overnight because my body had rested. My body said no more. I honoured my truth because your body tells you before you spiritually catch up. Now, today, I've been off insulin for 4 months. I'm curing myself through honouring who I am and healing. The doctors agree that, that I will probably be back on insulin at some point. My body will just snap. But for now, I'm just biding my time. But it is a mental game of, am I in fear of the doctors and what they say, and do I trust them? I've done everything opposite of what they told me. And I'm off all of the medication. I was on 5 meds at one point.
Yeah, I believe everything can be reversed by just getting yourself in nature and just unwinding and coming back to your source, which is difficult though. A lot of people don't believe in themselves. They don't believe in curing yourself. Joe Dispenza's massive as well on the mindset.
Well, he does say you can't cure type 1 diabetes. So that's a message just to say that I would never come off my insulin. But I don't believe I have type 1 diabetes. I think it's a misdiagnosis because true type 1 diabetes you cannot cure. We know that. And it will kill you very quickly if you come off insulin. That's why I've questioned the doctors saying, well, do you know? And they've even admitted we don't really know. All right, you're on 100 grand a year and you're just going to give me a prescription? No. So I've questioned the narrative on every area of my life, and it's turned out to be true.
Yeah. How many misdiagnoses actually happen? Is it frequently than people think? More frequently?
Yeah. Type 2, type 1 diabetes. Now, again, I just skirting into the NHS statistics because they're the only statistics we have. Type 1 diabetes is always misdiagnosed as type 2 to start with, especially in adulthood. So I was type 1 to start with, but all my bloods came back as normal. However, I do have a very low level C-peptide level and beta cell in my pancreas. So I kind of know I have to fast and not give my body too much stress and food. They told me I've got an eating disorder because of that. Slapped me in an eating disorder clinic.
No, the stats now for fasting is unbelievable.
Oh, I love it.
Like through your cells and killing cancer cells and rejuvenating everything back in your body and aligning everything back in your body. Just look up a 3-day water fast and look at the health benefits from it. You don't need to do 3 days. People do 5 days, 10 days. Some people do 24 hours just to kind of reset. But 72 hours, I believe, is the perfect reset. The mental clarity after 2 days is next level. Yes, you get your cravings, especially if you're so used to eating breakfast, which is the name is there, it's breaking fast.
Yeah.
But when you actually start looking into it and understanding the health benefits from it, we're hunters. We never ate every day. We never ate every 2 or 3 hours. We're greedy bastards now because there's so much stuff there that we can get at the touch of a button. But just do your own research on it. Look at the health benefits. And again, it's the cravings the first and second day with the sugar and stuff. But once you get past that sort of craving, the clarity you feel is a different ball game. And like I say, with the health benefits and what it can do for you internally, again, is a different ball game. Instead of people are dying with cancer, but yet we'll give you bacon, we'll give you all this other stuff that actually fucking causes cancer. So,
but you also knew in your heart that fasting was right. So because I had space and time and quiet, I was able to just sit in my heart and say, yeah, I'm going to try fasting because it felt right for me. But that's not going to be right for everybody. And this is the point. We always go to the external factor to feed ourselves. Go within. Who are you? I didn't know who I was until the last 2 years. God, I know who I am now. Let me tell you, I feel amazing. I've never felt so invigorated. Who are you? You look for that for the external world. Foods, games, jobs, cars, houses, sexual relationships, family, parties, baby showers. Do nothing. Find out who you are, and everything that you then make decisions on will be right for you because you will never get it wrong because you're so connected to your intuition, which is what they tried to break.
Good on you, babe. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I feel really good.
Would you like to finish up on anything else? What sort of information people can get? Where can people get in contact with you? Just get it all out there.
Yeah, so I just want to say I'm a retired midwife now, by the way. The NMC put me on notice that I used the word ex-midwife on my ex. So I just want to put that out there. And if you have to put me on notice, you're clearly worried. Just start little by little. Love yourself. Love every bit of you. Your mole, your wonky nose, your wonky teeth. Doesn't matter. You were born that way. You're perfectly formed. And we have been told for so long that we are nothing and we are no one. I remember who I am. And I love every bit of who I am. Even the bits that I've done terrible, I've learned to love them because they've made me who I am. If you don't start there with you and have a relationship with you, you will never have fulfilling things in your life. You will just feed them with the next holiday, living for the next Christmas. That's not life. I've got nothing, no job. I've got no car. I don't even own a car anymore. I've got nothing, got no savings. I've never, ever been so happy with just my family and my closest friends around me because I have learned to love every bit of me. And because of that, the message that I bring to you and to Steve and to all these other people in the world is you do not have to make any choice until it feels right with you. And if you are going to go into the NHS, you take your time. Do not let the system speed you up and speed up your choices. Just step back, take a moment and take your time. And if it doesn't feel right, write it down, sleep on it and go and address it. But until we start really educating the masses about the NHS and birth and connection to yourself, because it's all interlinked, everything's connected, you'll never ever get it right.
Remember, that's only a very small percentage of the NHS. Well, what you're dealing with, there's a whole different ball game. But it's not to shoot down everybody who works for the NHS. There's some amazing people who do some amazing work, like all walks of life. But there's just certain things you must question. How can people get in contact with you if they want to drop you a message or maybe inquire about certain stuff? How do they get in contact?
Yes, I'm on TikTok as Victoria Rickson. I'm on X as Victoria_Rickson. I'm doing some work with the World Council for Health with Dr. Tess Laurie. We're looking at how we bring in some sort of nursing and midwifery natural side in the southwest of England, because that's where we all are. So we're working on that at the moment. I do the Jim Ferguson show on a Saturday night on X, which is every week is a different topic. So I volunteer my time with this because I'm healing myself and having faith in something different. So I'm there on a Saturday night with Jim and the team, which is, when I started that, the trolling stopped. The trolling stopped because obviously my awareness in the world went up and I just felt more protected. So yeah, follow us on there. And, you know, by Christmas, I'd like to be able to drop the whistleblowing stuff because I can't really bring much more apart from updates on court cases. But I just think we all need to forgive each other, send love to each other. I send love to all of my colleagues, and I hope one of them, this just sparks in their brain and might change the trajectory of their life, and patients as well. So yeah, that's why I'm doing this.
Keep up the amazing work, Vicky. Listen, I wish you all the best for the future. Anything I can help with, you know where I am. But stay blessed, and yeah, good luck.
Thank you so much.
Take care.